Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. People in Marvel start to marry the Scarlet Witch. Chapter 1. In Sokovia, on a green lawn, an extremely luxurious wedding is being held at this time. Except for some reporters with various professional shooting equipment, the wedding scene was basically a group of people with the most wealth and status in Sokovia. Obviously, the protagonists of this wedding are not ordinary people, at least one of them is not ordinary people. Lee Chuan, would you like this lady to be your wife and make a marriage contract with her, regardless of illness or health, or any other reason, love her, take care of her, respect her, accept her, and be faithful to her forever until life end? The priest stood on the stage and asked a tall and handsome Chinese man on the left. The man replied solemnly, I am willing. The priest nodded, then looked at the woman on the right who was wearing a white wedding dress, with a prominent figure, and her appearance was both lustful and pure, and asked the same question. Wanda Django Maximoff, would you like this man to be your husband and marry him, in sickness or health, or for any other reason, to love him, to take care of him, to respect him, to accept him, forever to be faithful to him till the end of my life? The woman looked at the man opposite with a happy face, and nodded slightly. I do. The task is complete. Start to extract the small world. The extraction of the small world is completed. Please check the extracted small world in the world option. After hearing Wanda's answer of, I do, an emotionless electronic prompt sounded in Lee Chuan's ear. But now he doesn't have time to take care of the notification sound, because the link of exchanging rings and kissing will be coming soon. Lee Chuan, 20 years old, was originally just a rich second generation in Sokovia who lived and waited to die. His parents died unexpectedly and left him a large family business. 3 years ago, his temperament suddenly changed, and he began to take the initiative to intervene in the family business, and through a series of thunderous means, he revived the family business, which was originally only a third-rate family business, and became the richest and youngest Chinese entrepreneur in Sokovia today. At the same time, she also married a girl who worked in a convenience store with whom she had been dating for 3 years, and successfully entered the marriage hall. This is Sokovia News' evaluation of Lee Chuan, a sudden and talented entrepreneur. But in fact, the original body had died unexpectedly 3 years ago, and his body was taken over by a traveler, and this earth-shaking change happened later. Not long after Lee Chuan came to this world, he discovered that the world he was in was actually the extremely dangerous Marvel world. Although he was also a good fighter in his previous life, it is not an easy task to restore this body that has been emptied by alcohol and love to its peak. Besides, even if his body returns to its peak, it is impossible to stop Thanos and his space fleet that can destroy planets. To put it bluntly, even the more powerful Earth guns could kill him. Fortunately, he also awakened Goldfinger, a magical virtual panel at the same time. The virtual panel will give some main and side quests. After the main quest is completed, a small world can be drawn to provide travel, and when the side quest is completed, some rewards will be provided. For example, some ointments with special effects, sharp weapons, and even money or all kinds of things. His first main task, and now the only main task, is to contact Wanda, the Scarlet Witch who just turned 17 and works in a convenience store. There are 3 levels of completion for the main task: elementary, intermediate, and advanced. The higher the degree of completion, the better the initial identity and talent will be given after the new world is drawn. The primary level of completing the task of contacting the Scarlet Witch is to become a good friend who can talk to Wanda. The intermediate level of completion is to become a boyfriend and girlfriend, and the advanced level of completion is to directly marry and become a husband and wife. Originally, Lee Chuan just wanted to be boyfriend and girlfriend. After all, marriage is not a child's play, but he didn't expect that after 3 years of getting along, he actually fell in love with Wanda. No way, this woman Wanda is not like a normal Western woman. She is conservative in thinking and gentle in character, and she is especially serious about love. The ideal life is to become a housewife, and then spend the rest of her life in peace with her husband and children. All aspects of this are very in line with Lee Chuan's criteria for choosing a spouse. In his previous life, he fought black boxing abroad to earn money. He just wanted to find such a wife and live a prosperous and stable life, so in the end he still did not escape the law of true fragrance. At night, after Wanda fell asleep exhausted, Lee Chuan was finally free to click on his virtual panel and start checking the information during the day. Extract World, Naruto. Because the host task completion degree is advanced, it provides 5 attribute chakra talent, Naruto World Physique bonus, and provides a high-level identity, Prince of the Fire Kingdom, son of the younger brother of the Fire Kingdom daimyo. Time. 3 months. Small world time can be obtained through side missions. The world time of the main world is not synchronized with the time of the small world, and the time remains unchanged after returning. Things in the main world and the small world cannot communicate with each other. Please do not bring extra items. Quote. Sure enough, the treatment of the advanced completion degree is good. Seeing the introduction on the panel, Li Chuan's eyes lit up. Although after so many years, he doesn't remember the plot of the anime Hokage very clearly. But he knew that there seemed to be not many ninjas with talents of 5 attributes, even in the entire ninja world. Moreover, the number of cells in the Naruto world is 130 trillion, which is much more than that in the normal world, and the physique will naturally increase. As the prince of the land of fire, at least he doesn't have to worry about money and life, and the security level is very high when he first enters. 3 months, some are too short. After reading about the rewards for completing the main task, Li Chuan immediately turned to the column of side tasks to find out if there were side tasks that would increase the time. After searching for a while, he did find one. 1. Settle in New York City. Take Wanda to New York to settle down, and reward the small world time for 6 months. New York, that's not a safe city, but staying in Sokovia doesn't seem to be safe either. Although Li Chuan is not a die-hard Marvel fan, he still knows a little about Marvel movies while living abroad. If he remembered correctly, the location of the first Avengers battle was New York, and there were many messy things there. But if you think about it carefully, this Sokovia seems to be not much better. Not only is the base of Hydra hidden, but the entire city will almost disappear in the future. The point is, many side missions released on the panel are all in New York. Although no matter whether it is the main line or the branch line, there is no penalty if you don't complete it, but you can only get rewards if you complete more tasks, and you can improve your strength to face this dangerous Marvel world. In his previous life, he used life and death fists for money, and he knew that if he didn't practice hard in the audience, maybe he would be the one who died in the next match. Lifting the blanket and getting out of bed quietly, Li Chuan went to the balcony and closed the door, and called his subordinates. Jack, you can take people to New York now, and our plan to develop the New York market has started ahead of schedule. It was a plan he had before to bring his family business to New York, but now it's just because of the side missions that have been advanced a bit. Li Chuan knows very well that in the world of Marvel, no matter how rich you are, you can't deal with an enemy of Thanos level, but if you don't have money, some little fool can come to your door to trouble you. Since he settled in New York, his own company must also be opened in New York, and then develop and grow in New York to become a first-class capitalist. In this way, if shameless government agencies want to trouble him, he can also have enough means to deal with it. After making the phone call, Li Chuan went back to the bedroom to continue resting. He needs to recharge his energy and go to Huiying Small World tomorrow. Wanda and his elder brother Kuayin have not yet joined the Hydra organization's experiment, nor have they been stimulated by the Mind Stone, so their abilities are not strong. Wanda can cast some small magic, but it's not very lethal. Kuayin runs faster than ordinary people, but the speed is not that exaggerated. As for himself, through the rewards and assistance of some side missions in the past 3 years, coupled with his hard work day after day, although his strength has returned to the level of his previous life, he is also dangerous in the face of more powerful thermal weapons. So if he really wanted to settle in New York, it would be after he went to Hokage to learn chakra refining and some ninja. In the early morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone on Li Chuan's face through the glass window, he also slowly opened his eyes. Turning his head and looking to the side, Wanda was no longer by his side. Putting on his pajamas and leaving the bedroom, he walked up the revolving golden European-style stairs to the first floor, and soon he heard the sound of clanging from the kitchen. "Honey, you're awake, I'm making you crispy hash browns, wait a minute." Wanda poked her head out of the kitchen with a pan in one hand and a knife in the other. "Thank you, but I remember that you said before that you can't cook, and Brother Nee cooks at home." Li Chuan was very sharp-eyed and found the position of the kitchen trash can, and there seemed to be a few pieces of broken dishes. As if sensing Li Chuan's gaze, Wanda moved her fingers slightly, and the broken dishes quickly hid behind the trash can as if they had grown feet. I asked my brother for advice a few days ago, and I feel that I have mastered the trick. Wanda raised her chin slightly, showing a confident look. Li Chuan is outstanding, handsome, kind, gentle and rich, while she is just an orphan who works in a convenience store and is filled with hatred in her heart. She didn't know why Li Chuan fell in love with her, and he pursued her unremittingly for 3 years, which made her feel what true love is again. But she knows that the present happiness is hard-won, she must cherish it, and take up the responsibility as a wife. So she has never been talented in cooking, and she has been asking her brother for cooking experience recently, although there are always some minor accidents. That's hard work. Li Chuan smiled, went down and gave Wanda an encouraging hug, and went to wash and tidy up. 10 minutes later, Li Chuan picked up a crispy potato pancake with his chopsticks, chewed it slowly a few times, and then showed a weird expression on his face. "Honey, how's it going?" Wanda sat next to Li Chuan, with a look of expectation in her eyes. "Not bad." Li Chuan looked at Wanda and smiled. The taste was a little salty, but it was still within his acceptable range. It's much better than when Wanda cooked for him for the first time. I remember that Wanda tried cooking for the first time half a year ago. He made the simplest steamed crab. At that time, he swore that no matter how unpalatable the crab was, he would finish it. As a result, when he opened the lid and stretched his chopsticks towards the big red snow crab, the big snow crab grabbed his chopsticks. It turned out that Wanda was too nervous to cook for the first time and turned on the wrong fire, and the big snow crab she bought was originally reddish, so there was an oolong. In fact, after 2 people are together, it is not easy for one person to make changes for the other. Life can't always be haggling. One serving is definitely not enough for you to eat, then I'll make another one. Hearing Li Chuan's answer, Wanda's smile bloomed like a flower, and then she bounced back to the kitchen with a shovel like a little girl. Seeing this, Li Chuan shook his head with a smile, and picked up the second piece of potato pancake with his chopsticks and put it in his mouth, but this time his eyes showed a weird look again. Because this time it is not salty anymore, and the overall taste has risen several levels. Then he thought of Wanda's ability, and he felt relieved. Modifying reality, this is not the first time this kind of thing has happened after getting along with Wanda. After breakfast, Wanda in an apron waved a spatula and said to Li Chuan, "Honey, come back early tonight and I'll make you an Asturan stew." "Okay, then I'll leave work early." Li Chuan kissed Wanda's forehead, smiled and gave her a cheering gesture, then left with his briefcase. In the courtyard of the villa, an old man in his 50s saw Li Chuan appear, and skillfully opened the car door for him. "Good morning, Master." "Good morning, Uncle Li." Li Chuan nodded and got into the car. "What happened recently?" "Master, the man behind the scenes who has been targeting our group recently has been found out. It is Bavi of Raymond Pharmaceuticals. How should we deal with it?" Uncle Li drove slowly away from the villa while reporting to Li Chuan. Li Chuan said with a cold expression, "Tell Xiao Wu that he can go out to sea to feed the fish again." In 3 years, the Li family's company was able to be promoted from a third-rate company to the top, not because of Li Chuan's strong business talent. He is a black boxer, how can he do business? There are 2 main reasons. One is that Li Chuan will give some of the body-enhancing ointments and pills obtained from side quests to the company's scientists for research, so as to make many best-selling new products. The second is that he is ruthless and merciless in dealing with those opponents who like to make trouble secretly and compete maliciously. In addition to spending a lot of money to hire killers on the dark web, he sometimes makes shots himself, and even personally trained a group of subordinates who specialize in dealing with such things. Anyway, most of the people who had opposed him in the past 3 years were thrown into the sea by his subordinates to feed the fish. Of course, on the surface, he is the youngest talented entrepreneur in Sokovia, and he is also a recognized philanthropist. The charitable foundation he founded has helped many poor people whose families were broken by the war more than 10 years ago. Loved by the local people. After arriving at the company, Li Chuan took a deep breath after finishing all the affairs, and clicked on the virtual panel in his office. "It's time to enter the small world. Your Highness, it's time for lunch." In a daze, Li Chuan was awakened by a voice, and then a memory that did not belong to him burst into his mind instantly. Jinai, I understand. Yuan Chuan, 20 years old, the son of the late brother of the Fire Country's daimyo, the prince of the Fire Country, has no rights in the Fire Country but has a distinguished status and a rich family background. This is the identity that Li Chuan was assigned after entering the world of Naruto. And the woman named Jinai in front of her is the housekeeper of the prince's mansion, responsible for Li Chuan's food, clothing and daily life, and manages the entire prince's mansion. Just now he was basking in the sun in the courtyard of the prince's mansion, and fell asleep because it was so comfortable. After getting up and eating a luxurious lunch under the service of Jinai and other servants, Li Chuan ordered to Jinai, "Prepare the horse, I'm going to the Temple of Fire in the afternoon." Li Chuan did not come to the world of Naruto to enjoy the blessings. As a rich man in the modern world, if he wants to enjoy the blessings, he still needs to go to the backward world of Hokage. He came to Naruto world for one purpose, to learn ninjutsu and become stronger. Of course, if you can get some special technology from this world to help your group expand in the Weiju world, that would be great. There are two places in the Land of Fire where you can learn ninjutsu systematically. One is Konoha, the strongest ninja village, and the other is the Temple of Fire. Most of the other wandering ninjas and the ninjas recruited by the nobles have no strength and no ninjutsu, so they are not in Li Chuan's consideration. Compared with Konoha, the inheritance of the Temple of Fire must be much worse. At present, the strongest person in the temple is only the elite Jonin level Yuri. But he is safe. There are not so many messy and nasty things in Konoha. There is no Danzo and the 3 generations of 2 old fools, there is no intrigue between the major families, and his identity as the prince of the country of fire is definitely the beginning to learn ninjutsu preferred. The most important thing is that even if he took the risk to go to Konoha to learn ninjutsu, it would be impossible for Konoha to teach him those powerful ninjutsu. The harmony between Konoha and the Land of Fire is not as harmonious as imagined. Yes, Your Royal Highness. Although Jinai was a little surprised when he heard Li Chuan's order, he still nodded respectfully. The prince is an indifferent person, he doesn't like to socialize with others, and he rarely participates in noble activities. He suddenly wanted to go to the Temple of Fire outside the city, which was indeed beyond her expectations. However, as a noble prince, she can go wherever she wants, as a servant, she only needs to follow orders. The prince's mansion has a special carriage and coachman, so soon Li Chuan got into the luxurious carriage under the service of Jinai, led a group of servants and warrior guards, and headed towards the Temple of Fire. The Temple of Fire is located on a hill 5 kilometers away from the capital of the Kingdom of Fire. Because of its long history and grand temples, the incense is quite prosperous. His Royal Highness, we will go on foot next. Reminded by the housekeeper Jinai, Li Chuan jumped out of the carriage, and a long staircase leading to the top of the mountain appeared in front of his eyes. Unlike the deserted temples when I was watching anime when I was a child, the stairs are full of ordinary people from the Land of Fire, which is very lively. At that time, it might be because of the tomb robbery incident that Lulu temporarily closed the Temple of Fire. Walk, not talking nonsense. Li Chuan waved his hand and led Jinai, servants and guards up the stairs to the top of the mountain. Because now his body has returned to the peak level of the previous life, and after entering this world, his body was instantly endowed with the physique of a human in this world, the number of cells has increased significantly, and he obviously feels that his body has become stronger not a lot. So when he climbed to the gate of the Temple of Fire on the top of the mountain, he didn't feel tired at all, unlike ordinary people like Jinai who were already out of breath. I didn't expect His Royal Highness's body to be so good. In the eyes of Jinai and other servants, their prince belonged to the kind who stayed at home for many years, seldom went out, and seldom exercised, but he did not expect that his physical fitness was so much better than them. Is this the sealed iron wall? The gate of the Temple of Fire is more than 5 meters high. It is made of pig iron and painted with gold paint on the outside. On both sides of the gate are 2 huge stone statues. According to his vague memory, Li Chuan remembered that the gate and the stone statue were not only decorations, but also a powerful defensive barrier created by the Temple of Fire with enchantment ninjutsu and sealing techniques, covering the entire Temple of Fire. Once it is opened, it requires the unique chakra of the immortals of the monks of the Temple of Fire to pass through, which is said to be a defense that can never be broken. However, it seems that in addition to being broken once by Korra, who possesses Nine Tails chakra, he was also forcibly broken once by the undead duo organized by Akatsuki. His Royal Highness, are you going to receive the host of Tongchuan Huo Temple? Seeing Li Chuan standing still at the gate of the temple, Jinai asked softly. In Jinai's view, although the Temple of Fire is famous, it is just a temple. When His Royal Highness the Prince comes, the Abbot of the Temple of Fire should come out to receive and accompany him in person. Li Chuan shook his head when he heard the words. No, let's go shopping first. He came to learn ninjutsu from a teacher, not to pretend to be 13. Naturally, he had to put on a good attitude. Otherwise, even if he really worshipped at the Temple of Fire, he would have nothing to do if Dilu didn't want to pass on his true skills. Although the royal family of Fire Nation has a high status, they do not have absolute control over Ninja Village and Ninja Temple. Not to mention that he is a prince without power. Even if the daimyo comes, he can't force Huajuji to hand over the ninjutsu that has been passed down in the temple for so many years. After wandering around the temple with his entourage and burning a few sticks of incense, Li Chuan found that the Temple of Fire mainly enshrines two Buddhas, one is Guanyin and the other is Fudo Myoko. This is very apt to the Temple of Fire's famous ninjutsu, Thousand Hands killing an angry King Kong. After visiting the Temple of Fire, he didn't waste any more time, and went directly to the monk in charge who seemed to have a high status in the front hall, and said politely. I'm in Shiuanshuan. If there is anything I need to see the host, Lu, please pass it on. His Royal Highness, the monks in charge of the front office are all good people. When they heard that Li Chuan's surname was Yuan, which was the surname of the royal family of the Kingdom of Fire, he immediately thought of the rumored prince who didn't go out often. Exactly. Li Chuan nodded. The monk in charge immediately smiled and performed a Buddhist salute respectfully. Young monk, let someone inform the host, His Royal Highness, please go to the guest room in the backyard to rest with the little monk. Unlike the noise in the front hall, tourists are not allowed in the backyard of the Temple of Fire, so no one can be seen except the monks practicing physical skills in the open space. Hey, is that boy also a monk in the temple? Why hasn't he been shaved? Following the monk in charge on the way to the living room in the backyard, Li Chuan saw a young man with long hair. His heart moved, and he asked the monk in charge. The monk in charge followed Li Chuan's eyes, with a hint of disgust on his face. Your Highness, that is Kong, the child brought into the Temple of Fire by Dilu is a lay disciple, so there is no need to shave. How old is he this year? Li Chuan asked casually. The steward thought about it. It should be 11 years old. Li Chuan nodded when he heard the words, and didn't ask any more questions. In fact, he guessed who the boy was at the first glance, and asked the steward mainly to know the boy's age, so as to roughly judge the time when he entered this world. Although he still has an impression of the main plot of Naruto, after all, he watched the anime when he was a child. He is not very clear about what year the specific events happened in the world of Naruto. However, in his impression, Sora's age is not much different from Naruto's age. Sora is 11 years old now, so Naruto should be almost 11 years old, and Naruto seems to be 12 years old when he graduated from the ninja school. After doing this calculation, he roughly had some understanding of the timeline he was in, and at the same time he was secretly relieved. This time is actually quite good. The plot has not yet unfolded, and there will be no embarrassing situation where he meets the undead duo to destroy the temple just after worshipping in the Temple of Fire. Jinai, you guys wait outside. After giving Jinai an order, he entered the guest room under the guidance of the monk in charge. Li Chuan waited patiently while sipping hot tea from the Temple of Fire. After waiting for about 5 minutes, a bald monk who looked to be in his 30s and wore a monk's robe knocked on the door and entered the guest room. The Temple of Fire presides over Dilu, and I have met His Royal Highness the Prince. There is no need to be polite to host Lulu. Li Chuan quickly got up and returned a Buddhist ceremony. I don't know what orders His Royal Highness has for the little monk. After sitting cross-legged on the futon, Dilu showed a puzzled look on his face. For the noble prince who suddenly came to the Temple of Fire to look for him in person, Dilu actually didn't have any clues in his mind. Although he was one of the 12 guardians of ninja guardians in the Land of Fire when he was young, his mission at that time was to secretly protect the daimyo. He had only met this prince who had always lived reclusively, and he had not even said a word. Abbot Delu, I came here this time mainly because I want to become a monk in the Temple of Fire and become your disciple. Li Chuan didn't beat around the bush, and directly stated his purpose for finding Delu. As his prince, there is no need for too many verbal temptations. When Delu heard this, his eyes widened, and he showed a look of disbelief. His Royal Highness, are you sure you are not joking with the little monk? The dignified prince of the Fire Country, with such a noble status, actually wanted to go to the Temple of Fire to become a monk and worship him as a teacher. This really caught him off guard and was a little hard to understand. Although ninjas are powerful, Ninja Village is also the most important military force in a country. But in terms of status, the status of most ninjas is far less than that of nobles in a country. Therefore, nobles in general countries don't spend time learning ninjutsu, because they can just spend money on tasks for ninjutsu if they have something to do. They are passionate about enjoying life and enjoying life. Li Chuan, as the prince of the Land of Fire, the head of the 5 great kingdoms, has no real power but has a high status. Delu really can't figure out why the other party wants to learn ninjutsu from him. Abbot Delu, what this king said was not a joke. He is really interested in ninjutsu and wants to learn from you. Li Chuan nodded very seriously. Seeing Li Chuan's serious expression, Delu showed a slightly embarrassed look on his face. As the host of the Temple of Fire, accepting disciples is naturally not a trivial matter. Although the other party is the noble prince of the Fire Kingdom, he is really too old. If he remembers correctly, the prince in front of him is already 20 years old this year. He only started to refine chakra and learn ninjutsu at the age of 20. It is simply a fantasy to achieve anything. You know, to become a qualified ninja, talent, hard work, resources and time are indispensable. However, the prince spoke up directly. If he refused, it would be obvious that he would lose face. This would not be a good thing for the entire Temple of Fire. His Royal Highness, learning ninjutsu is a very hard work. Abbot Delu, don't worry, this king is not afraid of hard work. As long as the master accepts this king as his apprentice, this king is willing to do his best to donate 5 million taels as incense money to the Temple of Fire. Li Chuan smiled, adding another bargaining chip to the negotiation. As a prince, if he insisted on asking Delu to accept him as his apprentice, then Delu would definitely not refuse. But he is not happy, and he is not serious about teaching, and he is the one who suffers. So in addition to his own identity, he can also spend money on it. Anyway, as a prince, with his worth, it's not a big deal to spend 5 million taels. Since the prince is so sincere and persistent, how can Delu refuse? When Lulu heard 5 million taels, his eyes lit up, he clasped his hands together, and immediately changed his mind and agreed. In fact, according to his personality, he wouldn't be so happy just because of 5 million taels. But the situation in the Temple of Fire is not good now, and this donation of 5 million taels can just relieve the urgent need. Although the Temple of Fire is a ninja temple, unlike Konoha, it has various economic support from the Land of Fire, and can accept missions to earn generous rewards. Its main income comes from the people of the Land of Fire who come to worship Buddha. The people of the Land of Fire are rich, and the Temple of Fire is prosperous, so there was no shortage of money. But a few years ago, the chakra in the empty body ran away, which not only injured many monks, but also broke the strongest defensive seal of the Temple of Fire. In the past few years, in order to rebuild the sealed iron wall and treat the injured monks, the accumulation of many years in the temple has been almost exhausted. As the abbot, he is also the one who brought back to the sky, so the responsibility cannot be shirked. At this time, if he accepts the prince as his disciple and receives a donation of 5 million, it will greatly reduce the financial burden of the Temple of Fire. Okay, then Ben Wang will formally come to apprentice tomorrow with a donation. Seeing that Delu agreed, Li Chuan didn't talk nonsense, and immediately finalized the time. This time he entered the small world, it took a total of 3 months, so naturally he couldn't waste it. The sooner he entered the practice, the faster he could master more ninjutsu. Early the next morning, Li Chuan came to the Temple of Fire with 5 million taels, and then simply held a teacher apprenticeship ceremony and then entered the formal practice. His Royal Highness, start now. In the practice temple in the backyard of Huaji Temple, Dilu took out a scroll and spread it out. He was about to start teaching, but was interrupted by Li Chuan raising his hand. Master, since you have already apprenticed as a teacher, you don't need to call me Prince anymore, just call me Chuan. Huaji doesn't have any special requirements for the Dharma name, and it doesn't even matter if you don't want it. For convenience, Li Chuan used the word Chuan as his Dharma name. Dilu smiled when he heard this, and was no longer polite. Okay, Chuan, then I will tell you the principle of chakra refining first, and then I will tell you the difference between the unique talents of the immortals in our Temple of Fire and ordinary chakras. Thank you, Master. Li Chuan straightened his body and put on a gesture of listening carefully. Lulu began to explain. Chakra is the prerequisite for us to use ninjutsu, physical and illusion. It is the product of combining the energy and spiritual energy of 130 trillion cells in the body. And our fairy chakra, on the basis of the original, has taken in a very small amount of external energy. It is precisely because of this very little external power that our fairy chakras have some more effects than ordinary chakras, that is, they can moisturize the body and make the body skills more effective. So most of the ninja monks in our fire temple are very good at physical arts. After Lulu's explanation, Li Chuan finally understood why there is an immortal among the immortals, and after a long time, this chakra has a little connection with the immortal mode. It's just that in the immortal mode, a large amount of natural energy is absorbed when using it, so that the power of ninjutsu, body art, and illusion can be improved by leaps and bounds. The talent of the immortal race is to take in very little natural energy to reconcile the physical and mental energy when extracting chakra, so that it can slowly improve the physical fitness of the user. Then are there any shortcomings in our immortal talent? Li Chuan is very clear that if the talents of the fairy race really have advantages over ordinary chakras, even if they only slightly improve their physical fitness, then they will probably have been coveted by various forces long ago, and they will not be kept by the Temple of Fire forever. So there must be corresponding shortcomings. Dilu paused when he heard the words, and then replied with a little embarrassment. Compared to ordinary chakra, there is indeed a disadvantage that is not a disadvantage, that is, the speed of chakra extraction will be somewhat weakened because of the addition of external energy. Looking at Dilu's expression, Li Chuan immediately guessed, probably not a little bit, otherwise the Temple of Huaji would not have been a Jonin in Dilu these years. In the entire ninja world, most ninjas are mainly ninjutsu, and there are still a few who are mainly taijutsu. In addition, the body can be improved through exercise, and it can be improved through unique ninjutsu, at the cost of slightly increasing the physical fitness and slowing down the refining speed. It is estimated that few ninjas will be willing. Only ninja monks like the Temple of Fire, who don't usually have to do tasks and don't often fight to the death, will feel that the talents of the fairy clan are better than ordinary chakras. However, Li Chuan thought about it, and still decided to learn the chakra extraction method of the immortal talent of the Temple of Fire instead of the ordinary chakra extraction method. Because he always felt that the chakra extraction method of the genius of the fairy clan might be beneficial to the fairy model and the curse seal invented by Orochimaru. In the evening, after dinner, Li Chuan returned to his room and started the first chakra refinement. After worshipping Dilu as his teacher, Li Chuan asked Jinai and others to return to the prince's mansion first. He came to the Temple of Fire to practice, not to enjoy blessings, and he didn't need servants to serve him. And Li Chuan's behavior made Dilu secretly nod. Although he knew that at Li Chuan's age, he began to refine chakra practice, and he might be a ninja for the rest of his life, but after all, he was already his disciple in name, and he still hoped that the disciple could use some snacks. Of course, as a noble prince, Li Chuan's treatment is still different from that of ordinary disciples. At least he lives in a single room and does not need to sleep in a datong bunk like other monks. Hey, it's very simple. It was the first time for Li Chuan to extract the chakra, the talent of the immortal clan, and it was not as difficult as Dilu said. It might take a week or two to get started. Instead, he successfully reconciled the three energies of body, spirit and nature in proportion, and transformed them into chakra, the talent of the immortal race. But after thinking about it, he thought it made sense. What is the difficulty of extracting chakra? What is the speed of chakra cultivation related to? These are explained in detail in today's Lulu's explanation. There are 3 main difficulties in extracting chakra normally: body, mind, and control ability. The talents of the fairy clan have a little more natural energy, but because the amount of natural energy required is very small, it can be ignored. The stronger the body and the stronger the spirit, the easier it is to be perceived and then the energy extracted. The stronger the control, the more smoothly the 3 kinds of energy can be fused together and transformed into chakra. These may be more difficult for normal 7 or 8-year-old children. But for Li Chuan, it was very simple. First of all, the body. The most important thing in martial arts is the body. Stance, breathing method, tiger leopard thunder sound, etc. are all for strengthening the internal organs and the physical body. Even if Li Chuan didn't have chakra and ninjutsu to strengthen his body, with his current pure physical strength, it is estimated that he would be much stronger than the average genin, and maybe even comparable to some chunin. You know, his body was about to be developed to the limit of human beings, and the number of cells suddenly more than doubled after arriving in this world. As for the spirit, he can practice kung fu to his level, and he often fights life and death fists. How can he be weak in spirit and will, and the superposition of the spirit of his 2 lives will make him stronger? The obvious manifestation is that his memory in this life is very strong, and if he concentrates, he can achieve a photographic memory. The last thing is control, which is his strength. As a warrior, being able to basically control every muscle in the body is the minimum requirement. So when Li Chuan started to extract the talents of the immortal clan according to the method of the Earth and Land sect, it became so smooth. Moreover, with Li Chuan's physical fitness, his chakra refining speed is far faster than ordinary people, because the chakra refining speed is mainly related to the body. People with stronger vitality and stronger body energy can extract chakra faster. The typical example is Naruto's Vortex family. Of course, the chakrado in the body does not mean that the strength must be strong. Only by comprehensive consideration of ninjutsu, body skills, experience, skills, etc. can a ninja be judged. When Naruto was a ninja, the amount of chakra in his body far exceeded that of Kakashi, who was a ninja, but Kakashi could kill Naruto with 1 hand. However, a large amount of chakra is definitely a good thing, because it means that under the same strength, the one with the most chakra will definitely win in the end, and many super ninjutsu also need a lot of chakra to be released. The next day, it was still the practice room. Chuan, the refining of the talent of the immortal race is more difficult than the normal chakra refining, so you have to be patient. After trying it last night, if you don't understand something, you can bring it up, and the master will answer it for you. Our goal for these 2 weeks is to extract chakra first. Only with chakra can we carry out the following studies. Quote, Lulu knew that when he first started extracting chakra, he would definitely encounter many problems. He was afraid that the prince's disciple would be hit, so he comforted him as soon as he sat down. Master, I have extracted the chakra. Li Chuan smiled slightly. Regarding his own strength and talent, he felt that there was no need to hide it from Lulu, and he felt that he should show more. Only when Lu feels that his disciple is not here to play around, but really has the hope of becoming a strong man, will Lu pass on all ninjutsu to him. What? You have already extracted chakra, this is impossible. Regarding the extraction of chakra, I don't think you need to be stressed. Extracting chakra in a few months is a normal phenomenon. Lu didn't believe Li Chuan's claim that he had extracted the chakra at all. His first reaction was that he, the prince's disciple, was taking too much face. This is also normal. Having worked as a daimyo's guard, Lu knows very well that the nobles are very face-saving. Li Chuan didn't explain either, but directly concentrated the chakra, the talent of the immortal clan, in his hand, making it emit a faint golden light. Now he doesn't know how to seal or ninjutsu, so he can only use this method to prove that he can successfully extract the chakra of the fairy race. Seeing the iconic golden light of the immortal talent in Li Chuan's hand, Lu suddenly seemed to have been cast with a silencing spell, opened his eyes wide and opened his mouth wide, and stopped all sound. He was sure that there was not even a trace of chakra in Li Chuan's body yesterday. It is also very certain that what is emerging from Li Chuan's hands now is the unique talent of the immortal clan, Chakra, which is unique to the Temple of Fire. Therefore, Li Chuan, the 20-year-old prince, really managed to extract the chakra of the fairy clan in just one night. At the same time, he regretted for a while. With such a good ninja talent, if he became a ninja when he was a child, he might become a good ninja in the future. In fact, he didn't know that Li Chuan didn't spend one night at all, but only took more than a dozen seconds to successfully extract the chakra of the immortal race, which is slower than the normal chakra. Very good, you are very talented, Master is very pleased. Now that you have successfully extracted chakra, let's learn the most basic knot seal of ninjutsu today. Basically, most of the ninjutsu is released through knot mudra, and we have a total of 12 kinds of mudra, each of which has unique gestures, some of which are more difficult. Now you follow me to learn one by one. Remember, it must be standard, otherwise the ninjutsu will not be released successfully. The first one. Child. Quote, son. Li Chuan glanced at Di Lu's gesture, and immediately copied it exactly the same. With the muscle control of a martial artist, coupled with his ability to remember with a photograph, this seal gesture is not difficult for him. And Lulu carefully looked at Li Chuan's gestures, and originally wanted to correct the mistakes, but found that there were no mistakes to correct at all. Very good. Z's seal is relatively simple, let's learn the ugly seal next. Z, Cho, Yin, Mao, Chen, Si, Wu, Wei, Shen, Yu, Shu, Hai. Di Lu looked at Li Chuan, who was able to perfectly use all the 12 ninja seals after teaching him once, and couldn't help muttering. You really are a genius at being a ninja. It is possible to practice chakra refining in one night. Although this is a genius, Di Lu has not seen it before. Many geniuses with special blood and body can do it. But he can memorize all the 12 seals after teaching it once, and display it well, which he has never seen before. At this moment, Di Lu's heart was slightly shaken. Originally, he thought that Li Chuan, the prince, was only on a whim for 3 minutes, and he might go back after a period of time when he felt too tired to practice. Even if Li Chuan asked all the servants to go back, he performed very well in the past 2 days. Because of Li Chuan's age, he also felt that it would be difficult for Li Chuan to achieve anything in the future. However, the talent that Li Chuan has shown now makes him feel that if Li Chuan can endure hardships, there is really a glimmer of hope. After all, chakra only occupies a part of the strength of ninjas. Compared with normal ninjas, Li Chuan has indeed lacked more than 10 years of training, but as long as he works hard enough, it is not impossible to come from behind. Let's see. Ever since, the teachings he received became more attentive. Since you have learned the seal so quickly, I will now teach you the first ninjutsu transfiguration. Transformation requires only one seal, but the correct seal alone cannot successfully release ninjutsu. To successfully perform transformation, we also need to control chakra, and the circulation of chakra in the meridians is not yet. Following Lulu's guidance, Li Chuan formed his handprints, and then began to mobilize the chakra in his body. His figure was gradually blurred, as if he wanted to change, but he returned to normal in just a second. And Di Lu, who had been staring at Li Chuan's transformation technique all the time, felt inexplicably relieved when he saw Li Chuan's failure in performing the transformation technique. It's okay. To learn ninjutsu, you need to practice more. If you practice a lot, you will naturally be able to perform successfully. It's normal to fail for the first time. If it is said that Li Chuan can even learn ninjutsu at once, he really has to wonder if Li Chuan has already learned ninjutsu before he became a teacher. Faced with Lulu's comfort, Li Chuan seemed very calm, and he was very clear about his situation. He is not a ninja genius who is rare in a millennium. He can quickly master the chakra refining technique and seal because he has dozens of martial arts foundations. And the use of ninjutsu is mainly to control chakra, and he has never touched such things as controlling energy before. The martial artist pays attention to the control of the body muscles, and does not have the so-called internal strength that is shown on TV. In this regard, he is no different from ordinary ninjutsu beginners. If he has to say that he has any advantages in learning ninjutsu, it may be the patience and will to practice in summer and winter. And his strong body and spirit allow him to extract more chakra than ordinary people, and try to practice ninjutsu more frequently. At the same time, he already has a wealth of fighting skills, so he can spend more time on ninjutsu learning. 1 month later, in the training room of the Kingdom of Fire. Transform. Li Chuan formed seals with both hands, and instantly changed into the appearance of Di Lu. Seal again after untransformation. Clone. Next to his body, an identical self immediately appeared. Substitute. Immediately after releasing the clone, his hands were imprinted with the substitution technique, and his body disappeared in a puff of smoke. When he reappeared, he was already 5 meters away, and the place where he was originally standing turned into a small piece of wood. Li Chuan has fully mastered the most basic and simplest 3 body skills of ninjas: body transformation, avatar clone, and substitute. To be honest, although it is the most basic technique of the 3 bodies, it really has a very different feeling to him. Completely changing into another person, splitting into an identical clone, and instantly appearing 5 meters away, any kind of it is so magical and so incomprehensible. And this special experience also made Li Chuan feel the long silence in his heart come back. This feeling was the same as when he first came into contact with martial arts, but it slowly disappeared in the later experience. Perhaps it is precisely because of this that his kung fu has been stagnant. At that time, he felt that no matter how hard he tried, he was still no match for the power of modern weapons. He can dodge bullets with his strong body and precise prediction, but he can't dodge a Gatling, and he can't carry a bazooka. It is better to earn more money so that I and my family can live a better life, so that Master who is hospitalized in China can have better medical conditions. However, it is different now. He has just entered the first world and only studied for a month. He has mastered things that he could never master in his previous life, and there are countless possibilities in the future. Not counting ninjutsu, just the addition of chakra energy to the body has already given him breakthrough improvements in strength, speed and other aspects. Perhaps, he entered the small world not only to resist the dangers in the Marvel world, but more because of his original intention to break through his limits and become stronger. Very good. In a month's time, you were able to practice the technique of the 3 bodies to what you are now. It is indeed beyond the master's expectations. Di Lu watched Li Chuan complete the final substitute operation, and nodded with satisfaction. To be honest, in his opinion, Li Chuan is a genius for practicing chakra and seal, but not a genius for learning ninjutsu, and he is not so quick to get started with ninjutsu. However, Li Chuan couldn't bear to work hard. Since he started learning ninja, he found that Li Chuan was basically refining chakra and practicing ninjutsu 24 hours a day, except for eating, sleeping and going to the toilet. Over and over again, it doesn't seem to get boring in the slightest. Not to mention a pampered prince, none of him, nor anyone he has ever met, can do like Li Chuan. This not only requires patience, but also needs to endure the physical and mental exhaustion after chakra is exhausted. It is precisely because of this that his views on Li Chuan have really changed in his heart. Before, it was only because of Prince Li Chuan's status and the 5 million taels, but now he really recognized it in his heart, and wanted to teach him well and turn him into his direct disciple. He is older, but with such talent and perseverance, why not become a strong man? It's master's guidance. Being a teacher for a day and being a father for life, since he has worshipped Di Lu as his teacher, even if Di Lu's actual age is not as old as him, he should respect Li Chuan no less. Seeing Li Chuan's respectful expression, Di Lu nodded in satisfaction again. As a noble prince, Li Chuan has never put on airs of a prince since he was his teacher, and has always put himself in the position of a disciple. This is one of the reasons why he recognizes Li Chuan in his heart. Now that you have started with ninjutsu, I will slowly teach you new ninjutsu later on. Starting today, we will start practicing actual combat. As a ninja, ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu are just means of fighting. The ultimate goal of learning these is to defeat the opponent. Therefore, learning to fight is the most important thing. Quote. After testing Li Chuan's 3-body technique, Di Lu took him to the training ground of the Temple of Fire. In fact, in the original teaching of Li Chuan, Lu didn't have the lesson of actual combat. If the noble prince was injured, the Temple of Fire would be very troublesome. Teaching some fancy ninjutsu to make the prince happy is the safest way. But now that his thinking has changed, practical training is naturally indispensable. At this time, the ninja monks of the Temple of Fire are doing daily physical training on the training ground. With the blessing of the immortal talents in their bodies, their performance is not low. Chakra can activate cells and improve body functions, especially chakra with thunder attribute. The effect is particularly obvious. The talents of the immortal clan in the Temple of Fire also have certain advantages in this regard, so most of the ninja monks in the Temple of Fire mainly focus on physical combat. Of course, part of the reason is that the Temple of Fire is not like Konoha. There are so many ninjutsu for ninja monks to learn. Chuan, have you learned basic combat skills before? Di Lu took Li Chuan to the corner of the training ground and asked. Although most nobles don't know how to learn ninjutsu, they will learn some simple fighting skills since they were young, the most of which are swordsmanship and swordsmanship. Before the actual combat, he also needs to know what level Li Chuan is at, so that he can make a training plan for him later. Master, I have learned some and often practice at home. Li Chuan smiled slightly. Although his words were very modest, the confidence revealed in his tone made Di Lu feel a little bit. Kakai, come here. After thinking for a while, Di Lu turned around and called a young monk who looked about 17 or 18 years old. This is Kakai, he has the strength of genin, you can learn from him. After speaking, he exhorted Hai. Kakai, don't use ninjutsu, don't use chakra, be careful. He just wanted to have a rough look at the level of Li Chuan's fighting skills. If Kakai used chakra and ninjutsu, he was afraid that Li Chuan would not be able to catch a single move, and that would be too much of a blow to his self-confidence. Kakai performed a Buddhist salute to Di Lu. Understood, Abbot. The other party is the prince of the country of fire, and he would not dare to really hurt him if he borrowed his courage. However, being able to beat up a distinguished prince would be something worth showing off in the future. All the ninja monks in the temple knew about Li Chuan's identity as the prince of the kingdom of fire, but because of Li Chuan's noble status, and usually practiced in the training room behind closed doors, no one said a few words. It's just that in their hearts, they thought the same as Di Lu at the beginning, and they also thought that the prince was here to play. The older ninja monks are okay, but the younger ones like Kakai will inevitably feel a little more jealous. The abbot personally guides the cultivation, and before the Temple of Fire, he only had this treatment when he was empty. Seeing that Kakai was going to compete with Li Chuan, the ninja monks who had been paying attention to this side all stopped their training, and surrounded them with gloating expressions. Seeing this, Di Lu didn't say anything, but just asked everyone to make room for Li Chuan and Ku Hai. Although he told Kakai not to hit hard, it is also a good thing to let Li Chuan realize his shortcomings and thus encourage Li Chuan to continue working hard. This is the case with instructing disciples to practice. You can't suppress it too much, but you can't give no pressure at all. The degree of pressure must be grasped. Brother Kakai, please advise. Standing in the middle of the training ground, Li Chuan rarely showed a little excitement on his face. He also wanted to see what kind of strength a ninja at the ninja level was, and what level he could be in this world with his current strength. Junior brother, you are welcome, I am going to make a move. After Kakai reminded him, he made an offensive gesture, and in a flash, he rushed towards Li Chuan's place. Facing the rapidly approaching Kong Kai and his raised fist aimed at his abdomen, Li Chuan frowned slightly, and then relaxed. That's right, this place is not Konoha after all. How could Genin's strength compare to Sasuke and Naruto, let alone without using the chakra bonus? Yes, in his eyes, this young ninja monk named Kakai is really full of flaws at this time, and the speed of moving and punching is much slower than he expected. Of course, in the eyes of outsiders, Li Chuan seemed to be stunned. Only Lulu seemed to have noticed something from Li Chuan's expression. Offended the younger brother. Seeing Li Chuan stunned on the spot, Kakai didn't stop, and hit Li Chuan's abdomen with his fist, but withdrew a little. However, the expected scene where Li Chuan was hit and knelt down while clutching his stomach did not appear. Instead, his hands were empty, and Li Chuan's figure actually disappeared in front of his eyes. Substitution. Kakai's first reaction was that Li Chuan dodged the attack by using a substitute technique, which is a ninjutsu commonly used by ninjas in battle. It's just that he soon realized something was wrong, because there was no item behind the double in front of him, but Li Chuan's faint voice came from behind his ears. Brother Kakai, both ninjutsu and chakra can be used, otherwise you are not my opponent. It turned out that when Kong Hai leaned over to punch Li Chuan jumped sideways, with his toes pointing to the ground like a swallow scooping water, and he had already moved behind Kong Hai. If he fought back at this time, Kakai would have fallen to the ground. Impossible. Hearing Li Chuan's voice, Kakai's pupils shrank suddenly, and when he turned around, he was whipped. It's a pity that Li Chuan easily dodged again. He entered the temple at the age of 9 and practiced hard for 7 years to become a ninja. He didn't believe that his fighting skills were not as good as a pampered prince. Punching and kicking, Kakai didn't use his chakra, and continued to attack Li Chuan like a storm. But at this time, in the eyes of everyone, Li Chuan seemed to have turned into a swallow, light and light. No matter how Kakai attacked, he could easily dodge using various incredible angles. With the continuous onslaught, Kakai was already panting, while Li Chuan was still calm and relaxed, as if he was taking a walk. Kakai, use all your strength. Di Lu, who had been standing by the side and observing, had his eyes glowing now. He never expected that Li Chuan would have such a superb fighting level. Is Kakai weak? At least he wasn't weak among the ninjas of the Temple of Fire, but now he couldn't even touch the hem of Li Chuan's clothes in the battle, and his fighting level was not at the same level at all. Indeed, Kakai did not use chakra, nor did he use ninjutsu, but Li Chuan also did not use ninjutsu and chakra. If that's the case, then I won't be polite. After being unable to beat Li Chuan, Kakai's mentality was about to collapse. Hearing that Ji Lu had let go of his restrictions, he immediately covered his whole body with chakra, and used his best physical skills to attack Li Chuan again. That's what makes it interesting. Seeing that Kakai's speed increased a lot in an instant, the corner of Li Chuan's mouth raised slightly, and finally he stopped dodging, but changed his body shape, from the initial swallow shape to a tiger shape, and greeted him head-on. Li Chuan was the main trainer of Xingyi in his previous life, and he was best at Xingyi Wuxingquan, Piquan, Zhuanquan, Bengquan, Paochuan and Hengquan. Followed by Xingyi 12 shapes: dragon, tiger, monkey, horse, tuo, rooster, swallow, harrier, snake, bird platform, eagle, bear. Later, in those years of practicing life and death fist, I met many masters, and did some research on Bagua, Tai Chi, Wing Chun, Shaolin, Mantis and other boxing techniques. Just now, his body technique to dodge Kakai's attack came from Yangxing, and now Kakai's physical and rigid boxing method is tiger form. He actually fought against Kakai without using chakra. At this time, the ninja monks watching had changed from gloating and wanting to see the prince's embarrassing expression at the beginning, to a unified dumbfounded expression. They could clearly perceive that Li Chuan did not use any chakra in the battle with Kakai, and just relied on his strong physical strength and superb fighting skills to suppress Kakai, who had been strengthened by chakra. Go down. The tiger is out of the cage. Shortly dodging a straight punch to the face, Li Chuan fiercely pushed towards Kakai's abdomen with his hands shaped like tiger claws. It's over. In fact, after being strengthened by chakra, Kakai's body speed and strength have surpassed Li Chuan. However, in terms of fighting skills, Li Xuanzuo is not a little bit better than Kakai, a ninja who has never experienced real life and death battles in the temple and his brothers every day. Hence the present result. However, just when Li Chuan's tiger claws were about to touch Kakai's abdomen, Kakai suddenly turned into a puff of smoke and disappeared on the spot. Yes, substitution technique. Dazed for a moment, looking at a small stone on the ground, Li Chuan suddenly understood. Although he has learned ninjutsu for a month, he still hasn't fully adapted to it, and subconsciously ignores the existence of ninjutsu in battle. Fire escape, the technique of fireball. But at this moment, a sudden heat came from behind, which made Li Chuan's face change. It turned out that when Kakai sensed the crisis just now, he immediately used his seal to perform the substitute technique, came 6 meters behind Li Chuan, and then panted heavily and used a fire escape ninjutsu. Substitution is the basic 3-body jutsu, and it is also the most practical ninjutsu among the 3-body jutsu. Unlike the avatar created by the avatar technique, which has no attack power and can only confuse the opponent a little, the transformation technique is useful for inexperienced ninjas, and it can be seen through by experienced juninjas at a glance. Substitution is often used even in jonin battles. If used well, it can not only escape, but also turn the tide of the battle. However, it also has corresponding disadvantages. One is that you can't run too far. If you are in an open space and the opponent uses a large-scale destructive ninjutsu, then using a substitute technique is courting death. The second is the problem of substitute items, which can be replaced with some nearby items, but if the vicinity is too empty, you can only use the items you have prepared in advance. The third is that there will be a short pause after casting the double. If there are no buildings or woods nearby as shelters behind the double, it is easy for the master to catch the flaw and kill it instantly. Therefore, substitutes can be used when the strong fight, but we must also pay attention to the environment and timing. Li Chuan was new to ninjutsu and didn't know the fighting style of ninjas. Otherwise, the first time he found out that the other party was using a substitute technique, he should observe the surroundings and find the position behind the opponent's substitute. Junior brother, I accept it. Seeing that the fireball was about to hit Li Chuan's back, Kakai had a smug smile on his face. The fighting level of the opponent is indeed superb, but the reason why ninjas can replace samurai and become the most powerful military leading force in the world lies in ninjutsu. It's not over yet. The corner of Li Chuan's mouth raised slightly, and the chakra, the talent of the immortal race, activated instantly. His physical fitness was greatly improved, his legs exerted force, and he used a white crane to spread its wings, and jumped up to avoid the fireball at the very moment S attack. What? Kakai has ignored Li Chuan's failure to use chakra until now. Tiger down the mountain. Li Chuan landed on both feet and stared again, as if turning into a tiger descending the mountain. With an extremely powerful momentum, he came to Kakai in the blink of an eye. Seeing the rapidly enlarged fist in front of him, Kakai, who was overwhelmed by Li Chuan's aura, completely gave up resistance and closed his eyes tightly. After a while, the imaginary pain did not appear, but a gentle voice rang in his ears. Thank you for your teaching, brother, I have benefited a lot from it. The martial artist's ability to control his body is definitely not a joke. When he found that Kakai had completely given up resisting, he stopped his fist precisely 2 centimeters away from Kakai. Kong Hai looked at the smiling Li Chuan, with a hint of shame on his face. Let the younger brother laugh. Kakai is good, he has improved compared to before, you guys continue to train. Chuan, come with me. Di Lu looked at Li Chuan right now, as if he was looking at a priceless treasure. Even the ninja monks around him could clearly feel the joy in his heart. Can he be unhappy? The fighting level shown by Li Chuan just now, especially the level after using chakra, has basically surpassed the level of Jinin, and reached the level of Chunin, who is generally specialized in body arts. In the future, as long as you give a little guidance and learn how to cooperate with ninjutsu to fight, you will be good in Chunin. In the future, when the chakra level rises and meets the requirements of learning the secret ninjutsu, Thousand Hands killing an angry King Kong, it will be just around the corner to have one more elite Jonin in the Temple of Fire in the future. An elite Jonin may not be a big deal in those big ninja villages, but in the Temple of Fire, he is the only one alive at present. He never expected that the disciple who was originally accepted for the sake of status and money would be so talented. It must be blessed by the Buddha. In fact, Di Lu didn't know that what he saw about Li Chuan's fighting skills today was just the tip of the iceberg. The means of warriors are not limited to this. Today is a sparring, not a life and death fight. Li Chuan did not use many ruthless moves that would kill with one blow. No, calm down, don't make him too proud. Taking a deep breath, Di Lu tried his best to calm down his excited mood, then turned and walked towards the practice room. Yes, master. Hearing this, Li Chuan performed a Buddhist ceremony to all the ninja monks, and quickly followed. Kof just performed well, but there is still a lot of room for improvement. When attacking, you should not only stare at the opponent's exposed flaws, but more importantly, always pay attention to whether the opponent's hands are forming seals. As soon as you notice that the opponent has disappeared, you should move immediately and watch for attacks from blind spots. After returning to the practice room, Di Lu forcibly put away his smile, showing a trace of seriousness on his face, and began to comment and give pointers on Li Chuan's battle just now. And Li Chuan didn't take it easy because he won easily. Instead, he listened very seriously and raised some questions of his own from time to time. His combat experience is indeed rich, but that refers to the situation where chakra and ninjutsu are not used, and the opponent is also a warrior who also does not have chakra and ninjutsu. Today is also the first time to really fight a ninja, and it is only a ninja. Okay, let's go here first today, you go back and digest it. Finding that Li Chuan was not proud of being better than Kakai, and still maintained a serious and studious attitude, Dilu felt even more satisfied. Now he wants to formulate a series of training plans for Li Chuan, from the basic theoretical knowledge that ninjas need to master, to the learning of each ninjutsu and actual combat training and so on. After being an abbot for so many years, he has regained his energy. The Guardian Ninja Civil War is over, and among the original 12 like-minded partners, only Asma and him are still alive. Asma returned to Konoha, and he also returned to the Temple of Fire disheartened, taking over the position of abbot. Originally, he was still thinking about nurturing Kazuma's child, Sora, but he didn't expect that Sora's body had a problem a few years ago, and he still can't solve it, and he dared not teach him ninjutsu again. Yes, master. Li Chuan performed a Buddhist ritual to Dilu and left the practice room. The guidance given by the experience and vision of the Land and Land Elite JNIN level did give him a new understanding of fighting. Squeak. After closing the door of the training room, Li Chuan walked along the corridor to his own separate room. When passing by the training ground, he found that the ninja monks who were training secretly looked at him from time to time, and the jealousy and banter in their eyes were less than before, and there was more awe. During the month of worshipping at the Temple of Fire, he didn't have too much contact with the ninja monks, not because of the difference in status, but because he felt it was unnecessary. He went to the Temple of Fire just to improve his strength, and communication that had nothing to do with improving his strength was a waste of time. And according to his experience in dealing with things in his previous life, as long as you are strong enough, others will naturally respect you and please you. Even a simple smile from you will make people feel very attractive. After returning to the room, Li Chuan continued his daily chakra extraction practice. His physique and spirit are very strong, which is an advantage, but if he wants to increase the total amount of chakra, he still needs to spend more time practicing. The amount of chakra of a ninja is determined by talent, and the lower limit is determined by hard work. Without talent, you will never be able to achieve a huge amount of chakra like Naruto, but if you don't work hard, you will not even have enough chakra to perform a high-level ninjutsu. After completing the chakra extraction practice, Li Chuan adjusted his breathing and posture, and a sound similar to a cat's purring came out from his whole body. This is the unique technique of Shingyumen. Tigers, leopards, thunder, muscles and bones resound together. In the world of Li Chuan's previous life, in addition to improving his physical fitness through normal exercises, warriors would also further break through their limits through stances and breathing techniques. Low-level warriors practice stance, and after stance reaches a certain level, they practice breathing, further exercising the body from the inside out. The pillars at Shingyumen are called three-body pillars, and the breathing method practiced is the method of tiger, leopard and thunder. Although Li Chuan has now learned the chakra refining method and started to learn ninjutsu, he still does not slack off in practicing the breathing method. Because the strength of the body is the foundation, the thicker the foundation, the more chakras can be refined, and after the blessing of chakras, stronger combat power can be obtained. Standing and breathing are things that do not exist in this world, and they are also the foundation of his cornering overtaking. A month later, in the pond in the backyard of the Temple of Fire, Li Chuan wrapped the chakra around his feet, stepping on the water step by step carefully, trying to control the distribution of chakra as evenly as possible, so as not to let himself fall into the pool. Since the last time he competed with Kakai, the ninja monk of the Temple of Fire, he has conducted a series of formal ninja training under the guidance of Jalu. The most important of these is the study of cultural subjects, of course not astronomy, geography, physics and chemistry. These Lulu think that Li Chuan, who was born as a prince, must be fine. The cultural lessons taught by Lulu to Li Chuan are similar to identifying the types of ninja tools, and understanding the advantages and disadvantages of different cutting tools in different situations. Learn about detonating symbols, Bingliong pills, etc. that ninjas need to use frequently. Learn the ninja rules that all ninjas often talk about, team strategies and formations commonly used in ninja battles, basic ninja code interpretation, and ninjutsu characteristics of major ninja villages. And some common sense that most ninjas will know. A lot of this knowledge is useless to the ninja monks of the Temple of Fire, because they may not leave the temple very far in their lifetime, and they will not use it at all. But for a direct disciple like Li Chuan, a future elite Jonin, he must learn. Otherwise, when you go out to travel in the future, if you want to fight other ninjas and don't know anything about this knowledge, you will lose 3 points to others innately, or you may die. Lulu suffered from these losses when he first left the Temple of Fire to travel, including when he joined the 12 Guardian Ninja. Fortunately, he and Asma, who was born in Konoha, are good friends. Asma taught him a lot of precious ninja knowledge he learned in Konoha, and he also passed on the secret ninjutsu of the Temple of Fire to Asmart. In addition to the culture class, it is about the control training of chakra. At the beginning, it is to attach chakra to the feet to climb trees, and the next step is to tread water. As for the actual combat training, it hasn't been since the end of the last time. According to Lulu, there is no problem with Li Chuan's fighting skills, which are enough for the time being, and he needs to learn cultural knowledge and chakra control so that he can further learn new ninjutsu. After you have mastered the new ninjutsu, you can integrate ninjutsu into the battle through actual combat to form your own fighting style. In this regard, Li Chuan can only sigh that worshipping the Temple of Fire is indeed the right choice. Even in Konoha, there is no Jnin who has the patience and time to guide him so meticulously. And he really doesn't know many things about ninjas that well. His so-called understanding before is just the tip of the iceberg shown in the anime he watched when he was a child in his previous life. Also, because of the time too long, many memories are blurred. Yes, your control over chakra has improved a lot. When Li Chuan was walking step by step on the water surface of the pond, Dilu walked over with a few small rectangular pieces of paper. Master. Seeing Dilu appearing, Li Chuan stepped on the water several times, jumping in front of Dilu like the legendary Qingdong floating on water. Lulu nodded in satisfaction. Starting today, I will teach you some D-level ninjutsu, but before that, I will test your chakra attributes first. As he spoke, he took out a small piece of paper from his hand and handed it to Li Chuan. Li Chuan looked at the piece of paper in his hand. Is this chakra paper? Yes, I should have taught you about the test and use of chakra paper in the previous class. Di Lu looked at Li Chuan expectantly. Although the secret ninjutsu of the Temple of Fire can be used as long as he has the chakra talent of the immortal race, and there is no requirement for attributes, he still hopes that Li Chuan has as many attributes as possible. Yes, I know how to test. Li Chuan raised the test paper in his hand, and slowly entered a little bit of his own chakra. He already knew what kind of chakra he possessed, and now he was just showing it to Lulu. I saw that under the influence of Li Chuan's chakra, the chakra paper was first ignited, and then water mist appeared on the surface to extinguish the flame, then it became wrinkled, and it was divided into 2 halves by brushing, and finally it was all broken into paper scraps. It fell to the ground. Fire, water, thunder, wind, earth, you actually have the talent of chakra with 5 attributes. Seeing the changes in the chakra paper, Lulu first smiled, then was surprised, and finally became shocked. He originally thought that as long as Li Chuan had 3 chakra attributes, it would be great, but he didn't expect Li Chuan to have the extremely rare 5 attribute chakra talent. Those are the 5 chakra attribute talents. From what he understands, even in the entire ninja world, they can be counted on one hand, even fewer than the ninjas in the blood succession limit world. It doesn't mean that a person who possesses the chakra talent of 5 attributes must be powerful. There is only one case who can master all 5 attributes like the 3rd Hokage-sama, and has an astonishing reserve of 5 attributes of ninjutsu. But with 5 attribute chakra talents, at least you have the possibility to become as powerful as the 3rd generation of Hokage-sama, and you don't have to be afraid of being targeted in attributes. Fire beats wind beats thunder, thunder beats earth, earth beats water, water beats fire. If a ninja with comparable strength is restrained in terms of attributes, then the battle will be very difficult. And Li Chuan has 5 attributes of chakra talents, so he doesn't have to worry about this problem. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the more chakra attributes you have, the easier it is to match and release ninjutsu that far exceeds the conventional power. For example, first use a fire escape, and then use a wind escape, and the wind will help the fire, then it will form a more powerful compound ninjutsu that may surpass the original 2 levels of ninjutsu. Master. Seeing that after the test was over, Dilu had been in a state of shock and daze, Li Chuan couldn't help but stepped forward to remind him. Oh, very good, 5 attribute chakra talents, very good, very good. After regaining consciousness, Lulu suppressed the excitement in his heart, and after forcibly calming down his mood, he couldn't help sighing that Li Chuan was born as a royal prince, and his concentration was really strong. Regarding the chakra attribute talent, he talked about it in detail in class, and he also believes that with Li Chuan's strong memory, he must be very clear about the strength of the 5 attribute chakras. But after the test results came out, his expression didn't change at all, and he was still as calm as ever. Master, can I learn new ninjutsu? Seeing that Lu calmed down, Li Chuan asked. Lu nodded fiercely. Of course, today I will teach you a D-level fire escape ninjutsu, the fireball jutsu. Taking Li Chuan to the training ground, Lu began to teach Li Chuan the handprints of the fireball technique and the skills to pay attention to when invoking chakra. At this time, the only thing that Lulu regrets is that there are too few ninjutsu inheritances in the Temple of Fire. The Temple of Fire focuses on physical combat, and ninjutsu is only an auxiliary cooperation. Most of the ninjutsu passed down are D-level and E-level, that is, the 2 secret techniques have reached A-level. Originally, he thought that since Li Chuan was so talented in fighting, he must also focus on physical skills, but he didn't expect Li Chuan to have such a rare talent as 5 attribute chakra. If in the future the main body moves and ninjutsu is only used as an auxiliary, then it would be too reckless. Another month later, it was also the last day of Li Chuan's 3rd month in the world of Naruto. On this day, he specially asked Lu for leave, and returned to the prince's mansion where he had not returned for 3 months. Jinai, how are you doing with what I ordered you? In the room, while eating exquisite dishes, Li Chuan asked Jinai, the housekeeper of the prince's mansion. Jinai knelt beside him and reported respectfully. Your Highness, since I received your order 3 months ago, I have selected a servant with business talents from the palace, and then paid for him to form a caravan. At present, because of your face, His Royal Highness, the caravan is going smoothly in all aspects and has entered a profitable state. Quote, in this world, money is not everything, strength is the most important thing, but money can save a lot of time and trouble, and it can also give a lot of help in improving the strength in the early stage. The Temple of Fire lacks ninjutsu inheritance, so he can spend a lot of money to offer rewards on underground exchanges. Although he can't buy ninjutsu of the S level and A level, he can always find some of the C level and D level ninjutsu. If you want to kill someone and you can't do it yourself, you can also go to the underground and offer a high price reward. There are quite a few rebels with good strength who are willing to do it for money, especially the undead duo in Shao organization who are responsible for raising money. The reason why Dalu and Huaji Temple were destroyed by the undead duo was because someone offered a high price for Dalu's head, and as long as he killed him, he would give a commission of 30 million taels. Since his initial identity is the Prince of the Fire Kingdom, he must make full use of it and not waste it. Although he is a warrior who is not good at business, he can definitely send someone who is good at business to help him make money. With the support of his prince status, at least it will be very smooth in the Kingdom of Fire. Don't kneel down, come up and eat together. Have you bought the things you bought? Li Chuan was very satisfied with Jinai's work progress, and the smile on his face increased by 3 points. Seeing Li Chuan smile, Jinai also heaved a sigh of relief, then got up and sat opposite Li Chuan, took out a box from his arms and put it on the table. Your Highness, I have bought it. This is the best one so far. In Jinai's eyes, the present His Royal Highness is somewhat different from the prince he remembered. Although he still seldom speaks, his aura is much stronger than he remembered. She blamed it on the reason why the prince learned ninjutsu from Master Jilu at the Temple of Fire. Chapter 11. There are still 5 seconds, almost. After Jinai left, Li Chuan looked at the countdown to the return journey on the panel, quickly opened the box in front of him, threw a black pill inside into his mouth, and swallowed it into his stomach at the last second. The countdown ended, and after a trance, when he opened his eyes again, he returned to the office of Sokovia's own company. Come out. Immediately after waking up, he didn't daze, but slapped his stomach with his palm, and spit out the black pill that he had just swallowed from his mouth. I didn't expect it to be possible. Looking at the black pills with his own saliva on the desk, Li Chuan showed a hint of such an expression on his face. According to the prompts on the panel, when going back and forth between the main world and the small world, nothing can be carried, even the clothes will be different. When he was in Marvel, he wore a suit, and when he went to Hokage, the clothes on his body became the costumes of the prince of the country of fire. It seemed that there was no loophole that could be exploited, but Li Chuan still had an idea and had an idea. If he has just finished eating and is digesting the world, then the food in his stomach cannot be isolated from the body. With this in mind, he asked Jinai to buy a Bingliang pill in advance, and then ate it before returning. In order to confuse the panel, he deliberately ate a lot of other normal food before taking the Bingliang pill. Sure enough, things were as he thought. The panel did not forcefully expel the food he had already eaten, allowing him to spit it out again after returning. Bingliangwan, a kind of special food and medicine that ninjas always prepare during missions and battles. It can not only restore chakra and physical strength quickly, but also play a very good role in alleviating hunger. Li Chuan brought Bingliang pills to Marvel because he wanted his company's scientists to analyze the composition of Bingliang pills by studying Bingliang pills. Like the previous research on strengthening cream, make imitations, and a simple version suitable for sale to ordinary people. With the imitation, even if the effect is not as good as Bingliang pill, then when he is fighting in this world, it is equivalent to having an extra potion to temporarily supplement chakra and physical strength. The simple version removes the effect of restoring chakra, and only retains the effects of restoring physical strength and satisfying hunger, and can even be operated as two new products. If he does well, it may help him go to New York to open up the market this time. How to operate and publicize it will be left to the professional staff of the company, who is not good at these. Xiao Lu, let Dr. Smith come to the office. After wiping the Bingliang pills with a paper towel, Li Chuan pressed the phone on the table and gave instructions to Xiao Lu outside the office. Xiao Lu is one of Li Chuan's subordinates trained in recent years. On the surface, he is his male secretary, but in reality he is secretly protecting his safety. Although he is a powerful warrior, he can't resist modern hot weapons. In the face of professional assassins, especially if there are many opponents, he also needs the help of his subordinates. And Dr. Smith is a well-known PhD in biology that Li Chuan hired from England at a high price. At present, the company's best-selling and most profitable health care product, Dolly Wan, is a product copied by Smith through research and analysis of the enhanced ointment provided by Li Chuan. The role of the strengthening ointment is to increase the strength of the physical body after being applied to the whole body, and the effect is better under the stance and breathing method. Li Chuan was able to restore the peak of his previous body within 3 years, and the strengthening ointment played a big role. The Dolly pill can't achieve such a good effect, but if it is taken for a long time, it can also slightly increase the strength of the body and make the body stronger. Of course, compared to the long-term health effects of Dolly pill, it also has a short-term effect that can be seen immediately after taking it. It is precisely this effect that makes it so popular that it can be sold overseas, earning a lot of profits for the company. That is, within half an hour after taking it, even if you are an impotence patient, even if you are over 50 years old, you can turn into a macho man on the bed and fight everywhere. However, only take 1 capsule a day at most, otherwise the body will not be able to take it afterwards. Boss, Dr. Smith called and said he was not feeling well today, and asked for 3 days off. On the phone, Xiao Lu replied. Li Chuan frowned upon hearing this. Send some people to Dr. Smith's house to check. Asking for 3 days off at once is not something that old man Smith would do. That guy can't wait to stay in the laboratory 24 hours a day without rest. After the company grows bigger, it will inevitably affect the interests of some people. Although he has solved them all with thunderous means, there is no big mistake in being careful. Half an hour later, a muscular young man respectfully reported to Li Xuanwei. Boss, the third brother took someone to Dr. Smith's house just now. The doctor is not there, and there are signs of outsiders entering and leaving the house. It can be preliminarily judged that the doctor may have been kidnapped. In Sokovia, there are still people who dare to touch me. Li Chuan narrowed his eyes and told the young man in front of him. Xiao Lu, tell Uncle Li to use all his contacts to investigate. We must find Dr. Smith and find out who did it. In the eyes of ordinary people outside, Li Chuan is the biggest philanthropist in Sokovia, but in the eyes of some high-level officials in Sokovia, everyone knows that this is a real lion that eats people. especially those who dared to pay attention to the product of Dolly Wan. Now they can't even find their bones. Yes, boss, Xiao Lu nodded, then retreated respectfully. Putting Bingliang pills away and putting them in his pocket, Li Chuan touched his chin and muttered to himself. It can't be you. Ding dong, there are new side missions appearing nearby, please check. Just as Li Chuan was thinking, a panel notification sound suddenly appeared in his ear, and he quickly opened the panel to check the newly appeared side missions. Mission: rescue Dr. Smith from being kidnapped by Hydra. Reward: 5 detonating symbols. Quest: kill Baron Starrick at Hydra base. Reward: sea-level ninjutsu, fire escape fireball. Mission: eliminate the Hydra base in Sokovia. Reward: B-level ninjutsu shadow clone. Quote, it's really Hydra guys who did it. Seeing the newly appeared side missions, Li Chuan's face became grim. He has always known that there is a hidden Hydra base on the mountain outside the city of Sokovia. I also know that there are many agents of Hydra in the top ranks of the Sokovia government. It's just that everyone didn't offend each other before, and he didn't want to offend each other, so he kept pretending not to know. Looking at it now, it is estimated that the effect of the long-term use of Dolly pills gradually appeared, which aroused the interest of the other party, so they kidnapped the company's chief scientist, Dr. Smith. The Hydra organization has always been committed to the study of super soldiers and supernatural beings. The Uchiha clan's powerful fireball technique and Konoha's shadow clone are really attractive. After closing the panel, Li Chuan began to calculate in his heart. To be honest, his original goal was to rescue Dr. Smith. After all, Hydra is a very large organization, and it would be very troublesome to mess with them. But these two ninjutsu are so tempting. Although Hao Hao's fireball technique seems to never hit anyone in the plot, but in fact he thinks it is just for the needs of the plot, not to say that it is really weak. As the most well-known fire ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan, Hao Fireball Jutsu has the characteristics of large attack range, strong lethality and low chakra consumption. Moreover, its learning difficulty is only grade C, and only 6 seals are required. Even a ninja as powerful as Itachi would use the fireball technique from time to time in battle. Compared with the fireball technique that Li Chuan knows now, it is not at the same level at all. Li Chuan's fireball technique is to shoot a fist-sized fireball attack. The speed is not very fast, and the power is average. A slight advantage may be that the attack distance is relatively long. And the fireball is really very powerful. If you learn it well, the fireball you spit out is several times larger than a human. It is estimated that the general house can be directly exploded with one blow. As for the second shadow clone jutsu, let alone the famous ninjutsu of the protagonist Naruto, and the B-level ninjutsu developed by the second generation of Naruto Sensho Banma. Unlike the E-level avatar technique, which just creates a false illusion, it can really create a physical avatar, and the memory and experience of the avatar will return to the main body after being released. Once he masters this ninjutsu, his survival rate in the world of Marvel will be greatly increased, and he can send shadows to him in case of danger. But is it necessary to take the risk? After thinking about it, Li Chuan hesitated again. With his current strength, it is not too difficult to sneak into the Hydra base and rescue Dr. Smith, but it is not so easy to kill Baron Starrick and destroy the Hydra base. If it is said that he cannot go to Naruto World, then he must risk everything to complete the task and obtain ninjutsu. But now as long as they settle in New York, they can go to Naruto World for another 6 months, and there may be more after completing some side tasks. And as long as you can go to Naruto World, you will naturally have the opportunity to obtain these ninjutsu. Slow step by step, if you don't dare to take risks, how can you become stronger? Gritting his teeth, Li Chuan still made a choice, and he had to complete the 3 sub-quests. Whether it is Marvel or Hokage, it is not a peaceful and stable world. If you blindly seek stability and dare not take risks, when you really encounter an irresistible danger and regret that you didn't work hard at the beginning, it will be too late. As a person who fights life and death all the year round to break through himself, Li Chuan does not lack the spirit of adventure. If he gets the new ninjutsu early and becomes stronger, he will be able to obtain greater benefits in some events in this world. After going to Naruto World, his strength will be stronger and he will have more choices. This creates a virtuous cycle. Of course, you have to have a degree in everything, and some adventures that you have no certainty about dying or very mentally handicapped. Xiao Lu, tell Uncle Li that there is no need to investigate, let Xiao San and the others come back. With a plan in mind, Li Chuan got up and rang the phone on the table again. Now that it has been known through the panel that Hydra took away Dr. Smith, there is no need to waste time. In the city of Sokovia, there are quite a few high-ranking officials and wealthy businessmen who have connections with Hydra, and it is easy to startle them once they investigate. In the past 3 years, Li Chuan has been paying attention to the information about Hydra in addition to pursuing Wanda, restoring his own strength and expanding the company's scale. The reason why Hydra can hide so well is not that they are really that powerful, but that everyone thinks that this organization has been wiped out by Captain America during World War II. And most of their identities on the surface are agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or government officials, wealthy businessmen, and so on. For example, the base on the high mountain outside the city of Sokovia is nominally a military experiment base of the Sokovia government. It is said that it is also related to the peacekeeping force that S.H.I.E.L.D. intervened in the Sokovia rebellion. But he is different, he has always known the existence of Hydra, and he also knows that the base is the base of Hydra, so if he sends someone to watch carefully, he will naturally find many clues. At the same time, in the Hydra base on the mountain outside Sokovia, a strong Hydra agent was reporting to Baron Starrick, who was wearing a monocle and wearing a black fur coat. My lord, through hypnotic questioning, we have obtained the origin and formula of Dolly Pill from Dr. Smith. Tell me. Baron Strucker turned his hands behind his back, with a look of interest on his face. The strong Hydra agent lowered his head. According to Dr. Smith, the Dolly Pill was not researched by him alone, but was made according to the research of a drug called Strengthening Ointment provided by Li Chuan, the boss of the Li Group. In terms of effect, the Strengthening Ointment's strengthening of the body is much stronger than that of Daliwan. Quote. Interesting, where did the Strengthening Ointment in Li Chuan's hand come from? Is there still stock in his hand? The interest on Baron Strucker's face became even stronger. The strong Hydra agent shook his head. The source is unclear. Dr. Smith's answer is no. Li Chuan originally gave him a sample in order to be able to replicate the exact same strengthening ointment, but his ability can only reach the level of Dolly Pill. Later, when the samples ran out, he asked Li Chuan for further research, but he didn't get any more. Quote. After finishing speaking, he looked up at Baron Starrick, and carefully suggested. My lord, do you need me to lead the team to tie up that Li Chuan? Not for the time being. Lock up Smith first, and hand over the information to Garrett at that time. Our current deal is only Dr. Smith and the formula of Dolly Pill, and we will see later. Baron Starrick waved his hand lightly, rejecting his subordinate's proposal. John Garrett, one of the top leaders of the Hydra organization and an 8th-level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., is keen on experiments in body modification. Previously, through the data and intelligence of S.H.I.E.L.D., I learned that Dolly Pill, a health product that is very popular in the world, can strengthen the body if taken for a long time. So he made a deal with him, and asked him to send someone to secretly arrest Dr. Smith, who developed the Dolly Pill with the information of the supernatural being in his hands. He himself is not interested in physical enhancement, he is only interested in researching and developing abilities, so he agreed to the deal at that time. As for the so-called strengthening ointment and the real behind-the-scenes Li Chuan, they are not within the scope of his transaction. Moreover, kidnapping a scientist is not at the same level as kidnapping the richest and most powerful entrepreneur in Sokovia. Of course, unless Garrett is willing to increase the price, that is another matter. Master, he is eating at the restaurant in front of him. The red car that just drove up by the side of the road is his, and the driver is his driver, named. On a busy street in Sokovia, Xiaolu pointed to a restaurant in front and told Li Chuan the general situation. Li Chuan nodded, opened the car door and got out of the driveway. Okay, you and them should withdraw first, and I will take care of the rest. Yes, boss. Xiaolu didn't ask Li Chuan how to solve it, nor did he ask Li Chuan what plan he had. He nodded and used the communicator to evacuate all the brothers nearby, including himself. In their hearts, Li Chuan is not only the boss, but also the master, and even the benefactor who brought them out of the desperate life 3 years ago. So the perfect execution of any order from Li Chuan is what they should do most. Transfiguration. After getting off the car, Li Chuan didn't go forward directly, but walked around in a circle, walked into an empty alley, activated the transformation technique, and changed into the appearance of a traffic policeman he just saw on the street. Then, taking advantage of the lack of people, he walked slowly to the red car and knocked on the window of the driver's seat. "Come down, your car is parked." "Stop, are you kidding, sir?" With the window rolled down, a young man in his 20s looked at Li Chuan with an impatient look on his face. "Of course I'm not kidding." The corner of Li Chuan's mouth raised, he took out a small bottle from his pocket, passed through the car window like lightning, and sprayed it on the face of the young man who didn't react. The young man rolled his eyes and fainted immediately. Sometimes it is much easier to use technology products appropriately than to hold your fists. In the past 3 years of his rebirth, he was not all practicing martial arts. He also paid a lot of money to hire professional mercenaries to learn various firearms. Needless to say, with his body and reaction speed, after being equipped with various firearms, the lethality has really improved a lot. At least when clearing those hostile forces, the efficiency is greatly improved. He reached out and pressed the button to open the car door, threw the fainted driver to the co-pilot, drove into the alley next to him, and then skillfully put it into the trunk. Li Chuan activated the transformation technique again, turning into the appearance of a young driver, and drove back to the car. Arrived at the position just now. 10 minutes later, a middle-aged man with a big belly, under the protection of several bodyguards, walked out of the restaurant and got into Li Chuan's car. Back office. Yes. Li Chuan agreed in a Western dress, but quickly turned around, took out the small bottle full of drugs again, and sprayed it on the middle-aged man's face precisely. Transfiguration. Transforming into the appearance of a middle-aged man, he got out of the car and drove away the bodyguards in the 2 cars behind. Li Chuan drove the unconscious middle-aged man away from Sokovia City and entered the sparsely populated mountainous area. The middle-aged man's name is Hades, and he is the boss of a food group in Sokovia. He is not very well known, and in the entire Sokovia business circle, he is at best third-rate. However, after Uncle Li's investigation, this person actually cooperates with the Hydra base in the mountainous area. Every month, he sends his company's trucks to deliver supplies to the base in boxes and boxes, and the delivery lasts for more than 10 years. If this guy wants to say that it has nothing to do with Hydra, ghosts will not believe it. Of course, just in case, you still have to cheat. Lifted Hades from the car and threw it on the ground, took out a bottle of mineral water and poured it on his face. What happened? Hades sat up abruptly from the ground, wiped the water off his face, with a confused look in his eyes. Long live Hydra. Hades, something happened to you. Dare to betray the organization. Lord Baron asked me to deal with you. Li Chuan took out his gun and pointed it at Hades' temple, scaring him soberly in an instant. Long live Hydra. Mike, listen to me, this is a misunderstanding, it must be a misunderstanding. I have not betrayed the adults, nor have I betrayed the organization. I want to contact the adults directly. He didn't expect that the driver who had been with him for many years was actually someone sent by the Baron to monitor him. What's more, he didn't expect that he, who is loyal to the organization, would be framed as a traitor and would be executed here. Who is it? Who framed him? My lord has explained. I will execute you immediately. Li Chuan shook his head and loaded the pistol with a cold look. Hearing the sound of the pistol being loaded, Hades was in a state of confusion, begging incoherently. Mike, you have to believe me, I really didn't betray you. You forgot, I helped you deal with the last time you killed a female college student. I haven't treated you badly all these years, just let me beat you personally. Phone and an adult to explain. It seems that you are not the kind of person with firm beliefs, so it will be easy to handle. Seeing that Hades was so frightened that he almost peed his pants, Li Chuan showed a cold smile on his face. After a simple test, it can be fully confirmed that the guy in front of him is a member of Hydra, and he is not the kind of agent who is brainwashed and commits suicide at every turn. Mike, what do you mean? Looking at Li Chuan's expression and listening to Li Chuan's words, Hades finally noticed that something was wrong. However, it was too late. Li Chuan didn't answer his words at all, but directly stepped forward and crushed his hand bones, and said coldly. Now, what do I ask? What do you answer? If there is a slight hesitation, a trace makes me feel that you are lying. Then I will let you taste how crisp your whole body is when your bones are crushed bit by bit. I said everything. Hades uttered screams of pain, nodding frantically with horror on his face. At this moment, he already understood in his heart that Li Chuan might not belong to Hydra, and might not even be his driver Mike. However, he didn't want to die, nor did he want to suffer so much, so he could only confess honestly. 20 minutes later, Li Chuan, who crushed Hades' bones, broke his neck, clapped his hands and stood up. In fact, when 1/3 of Hades' bones were crushed, Hades' answer was no different, and it was basically certain that he had not lied again. However, in order to be 100% sure, he kept crushing Hades' bones and repeated all the questions over and over again. No way, he will enter the Hydra base alone in a while. As long as Hades conceals a little bit, deliberately tricks his little thoughts, he may be found out, and he will be in danger of being besieged by a large number of elite Hydra agents. You are not a good thing either. After twisting Hades' neck, Li Chuan took out the unconscious driver Mike from the trunk, and also twisted his neck without hesitation. Earth escape, earth burial. As soon as he pressed his hands to the ground, the bodies of Hades and Mike were swallowed by the automatically separated soil. Burial, E-level earth escape ninjutsu, has no attack power at all, it is an auxiliary ninjutsu used to bury corpses. Transfiguration. After cleaning the traces briefly, Li Chuan made seals with both hands, and changed from a young driver to a pot-bellied Hades with a bang. Sometimes these auxiliary ninjutsu are better than offensive ninjutsu. Driving Hades' red car, he couldn't help sighing secretly. Although the transformation technique is only an E-level difficult ninjutsu that all beginners know, it is extremely easy to use in this Marvel world where no one can recognize Chakra. If he didn't have the transformation technique, then he wouldn't be able to easily tie Hades to the outskirts for interrogation without leaving any traces. You know, no matter whether it is his own shot or his men's shot, there are cameras in the city, and it will inevitably leave traces. When everything is over, if someone with a heart investigates, it is very likely to trace his group and him through these traces. The point is, even if he has the blessing of Chakra and has learned some aggressive ninjutsu, it is basically impossible to break into the Hydra base to rescue Dr. Smith alone. Not to mention killing Baron Steric and destroying the entire Hydra base. At this time, the Hydra base has not yet obtained the Scepter of the Mind, nor has it worked out some high-tech energy protection measures through the study of the Gem of the Mind and the spaceship of the Chidori. But just ordinary spears and cannons are actually much more powerful than D-level ninjutsu like the fireballs he sends out. Therefore, there is absolutely no chance of being tough. Only by sneaking in and taking advantage of his strong individual strength, can he have a chance to complete the 3 tasks and get out unscathed. And if you haven't learned the ninjutsu of transformation, it is also difficult to sneak into the Hydra base, which is protected by various surveillance equipment without dead ends. As far as it is concerned, his transformation technique is actually not very good due to time reasons. If you practice well, you can not only transform into the appearance of other people, but also other creatures, and even inanimate objects, such as a large stone, vase, weapon, etc. Of course, not everything can be changed, and there are corresponding restrictions and precautions. One is that no matter what it becomes, if it cannot hide Chakra well, it will be seen through by other ninjas at a glance, especially sentient ninjas. This is much better in Marvel, because there are no ninjas here. The second is that it cannot be said that what you become must be what you become, just like if you become a detonator, it is impossible to really explode, but the appearance is the same. The third is that it is difficult to maintain the stability of Chakra when it is attacked, and it is easy to change back to its original shape. So it cannot be said that if you become a knife, you can really be slashed with a real knife, and if you become a shield, you can really block bullets. However, if the transformation technique is practiced to the extreme, many other more powerful ninjutsu can also be developed on this basis. Xiaonan, like Akatsuki, extended his body into countless pieces of paper to avoid physical attacks. Shiki paper dance, and Jiraiya also used it to torture information and force the enemy into frogs. Frog transformation technique. Many high-level ninjutsu are actually developed on the basis of low-level ninjutsu. The knowledge related to the transformation technique was taught to him by him in the Temple of Fire, Delu. Mr. Hades, why are you here? Didn't you just deliver the supplies last week? On the first line of defense outside the base, a group of soldiers stopped Li Chuan's car. The leading captain was obviously familiar with Hades' car, and stepped forward to knock on the window glass. Li Chuan took a deep breath. He didn't know the little captain in front of him. Although he tortured a lot of information from Hades, as an old Hydra member, Hades basically knew most of the people in the base, and it was impossible for him to be identified by describing his appearance. Therefore, if there is too much communication along the way, it is easy to show flaws before seeing Baron Starrick. So, he pushed the car door hard, then threw himself on the ground, and said to the team leader with an anxious and terrified face, "Hurry up, take me to see the Baron. The Baron is in danger. There is a traitor in the base. He is, yes." Before he could finish speaking, he closed his eyes and passed out, and used the martial artist's ability to control his body to lower his heartbeat and breathing as much as possible. The leading team leader was obviously also frightened by Li Chuan's performance at this time. "Mr. Hades, Mr. Hades." Leaning down to test Li Chuan's breathing, and then listening to his heartbeat, he hurriedly ordered loudly to his subordinates, "Quick, bring Mr. Hades back to the base for treatment." Hades just said one sentence before he fainted, but if the information revealed in this sentence was true, it would be too scary. How could he dare to be negligent, and immediately reported to the superiors what happened here? Feeling that he was being transported to the direction of the base, Li Chuan, who pretended to be dizzy, secretly heaved a sigh of relief. According to the information given by Hades, there are 6 checkpoints outside the Hydra base. Even if he wanted to see Baron Starrick in the form of Hades, because he didn't enter according to the normal time, he would definitely be questioned along the way. Now that he does this, he can reasonably avoid all checkpoints and see the target as quickly as possible. Who would be wary of an old Hydra with no weapons, dying, and carrying important information? The only thing is that his acting skills just now may be a little exaggerated. After all, he is not a professional actor, but fortunately, with his physical cooperation, the other party didn't notice anything. Galloping along the way, Li Chuan passed 5 checkpoints in a patrol jeep, stopped directly at the gate of the base, and was carried in on a stretcher by several base medical staff in white. In the medical room of the base, Li Chuan was carried to a hospital bed. The scientist who used to conduct human experiments on Hydra, now turned into a temporary doctor, was doing a preliminary examination for Li Chuan. "Dr. Lister, how is Hades?" Not long after, Baron Starrick, wearing a leather jacket and wearing a monocle, came to the medical room with 2 of his men. Dr. List, the overall person in charge of all experimental projects at the base and the base's second in command, shook his head. "It's strange, his body doesn't seem to be injured, but his heartbeat and breathing are very weak. It may be attacked by some kind of special weapon or ability. Next, I'm going to try it with an electric shock device to see if it can help him restore his heartbeat." Quote, "We must save him." Baron Strucker gave the order with a serious expression. If it is normal, Hades dies as soon as he dies, and he is not considered an important person. After death, there are many people who can replace him. But the situation is different now. If you don't understand what Hades said before he fell into a coma, you must not let him die. Who attacked Hades? What is the danger Hades speaks of? What about the traitors in the base? Ha, 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 my Lord Baron, I want to see my Lord Baron. Squinting his eyes, he saw Dr. List coming over with an electric shock device, and Li Chuan immediately woke up pretending to breathe heavily. "If you don't wake up again, you will be electrocuted, and the transformation technique will be forcibly cancelled." "Hades, tell me, what's going on?" Seeing Li Chuan sitting up from the hospital bed in the medical room, Baron Starrick immediately pushed the door open with 2 of his men and strode in. Li Chuan glanced at him, and quickly made a judgment in his mind based on Hades' description of the character's appearance. The leader wearing a black leather jacket with a single lens must be Baron Strucker, the head of the base. The old man next to him with the electric shock device should be Dr. List, the second in command. As for the unusually strong figure on the left side behind Baron Starrick, it is the Hydra agent captain in charge of special operations, and it is estimated that he led the team to kidnap Dr. Smith. The tall, thin middle-aged man on the right is the commander of the defense system of the entire base. Very good, the high-level leader of the base has arrived. Li Chuan was secretly happy in his heart, but on the surface he pretended to glance at the commander with a very scared look, and then replied to Baron Starrick. My lord, can you let the others go out first? Hades, what do you mean? The commander, who was glanced at by Li Chuan, had a bad premonition in his heart for some reason, and his tone immediately became cold. Baron Starrick thought for a while and ordered, everyone get out. Are you safe, my lord? A hint of worry appeared on the Hydra captain's face. Why, do you think Hades will threaten me? Baron Strike's expression turned cold instantly. Just now Hades looked at the commander's terrified eyes, and the words, traitor, and danger, in his mouth before he fell into a coma made him have some bad associations in his mind. As for whether it would be dangerous to be alone with Hades, just kidding, although his body has not been modified yet, it is not something that ordinary people can get close to. A guy like Hades who doesn't have a weapon on his body and will pant after a few steps, he can kill the opponent with one hand. Yes, my lord. Hearing Baron Strike's tone turn cold, Captain Hydra dared not say anything, and hurriedly exited the medical room with the commander and Dr. Lister. He then closed the curtains on the windows of the medical room and turned off all the monitoring equipment. Tell me, there are only two of us now, what's going on? Baron Strike looked at Li Chuan who was sitting on the hospital bed with a serious tone. That's right, Lord Baron. While Li Chuan pretended to get up to answer, the chakra in his body instantly covered his whole body, and his muscles exerted force, and he suddenly leaned towards Baron Strike at a speed faster than a cheetah. Go to hell, you! Baron Strike's pupils shrank, and as soon as he opened his mouth, his whole head was turned 360 degrees by Li Chuan, and he couldn't die anymore. Pulling out the pistol from Baron Strike's waist, and throwing his body under the hospital bed, Li Chuan activated the transformation technique again, turning into the appearance of Baron Strike, and walked towards the door of the medical room. Boom! Pushing open the door of the medical room, without further ado, he raised his hand and shot the commander, instantly blasting him in the head. Lord Baron, what's going on? Seeing that Baron Strike destroyed the commander in charge of the defense system in the base as soon as he went out, Dr. Lister and Captain Hydra were also stunned. Will is a traitor, S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury's man, and there will be a lot of S.H.I.E.L.D. and FBI agents attacking the base soon. Brass, you are now taking over the base's defenses immediately. Dr. Lister, you come with me. Quote. Li Chuan didn't give Hydra Captain and Dr. List any time to think, and after a brief explanation, he issued a combat order. But Hydra Captain Blass obviously hesitated. The colleague who has been working together for nearly 10 years is actually a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., isn't most of the key members of S.H.I.E.L.D. not agents of Hydra? Didn't Nick Fury never know Hydra existed? Do you want to be a traitor too? Li Chuan turned his gun on Captain Hydra, and Captain Hydra was terrified immediately. How dare he have any doubts? Long live Hydra, my lord, I will take over the defense system and prepare for defensive operations. Not daring to delay at all, he turned around and walked towards the combat command room immediately. You two come here and stand at the door to protect Hades. No one is allowed to enter without my order, including Blass. Ordering 2 Hydra agents to stand guard at the door of the medical room to prevent the real Baron Strucker's body from being discovered, Li Chuan led Dr. Lister towards the base laboratory. The base can no longer be defended. Download all the information and activate the self-destruct device. We are preparing to evacuate to other places. By interrogating Hades, Li Chuan knew that basically every Hydra base would have a self-destruct device, in order to destroy all the data once the base was breached, and pit another wave of attacking enemies by the way. The self-explosion button of the Sokovia Hydra base, only Baron Strucker and Dr. Lister know where it is, and have the authority to activate it. What about the Dr. Smith that Lord Garrett wants? Dr. Lister asked. Although he is the second in command of the base, Dr. Lister does not intervene in some spy agents and other activities within Hydra. He only obeys the orders of Baron Starrick and focuses on research experiments on superpowers. So seeing Baron Strike shot the commander in the head, although he was confused, he didn't think as much as Captain Hydra thought. Take it together, Li Chuan replied without hesitation. The main purpose of his coming here is to rescue Dr. Smith. Yes, my lord, Dr. Lister nodded. 5 minutes later, Li Chuan took Dr. Smith, who was dazed, and Dr. Lister, who was carrying a briefcase, into the helicopter specially used by Strike on the top floor, and slowly flew away from the base. Boom. A moment later, a sky-shattering loud noise sounded from the rear and lower part of the helicopter. Under the action of the self-destruct device, the entire base and everyone inside rose to the sky together. My lord, the base exploded. Looking at the burning base, List showed a trace of reluctance on his face. After staying for more than 10 years, it is inevitable that he has some feelings. Real men never look back at explosions. Li Chuan smiled indifferently. All his attention was on the notification sound in his ears at this time. Rescue Smith mission completed. Kill Baron Steric mission completed. Destroy the Hydra base in Sokovia mission accomplished. Mission rewards have been distributed to the dedicated space for mission items. Please take the time to check. Quote. My lord the Baron. Dr. List looked at Baron Steric, who was smiling more and more, with a confused look on his face. He didn't know why the base that had been in operation for so many years was bombed after spending so much effort. Instead of being angry or sad, the Baron was so happy. Dr. Lister, don't be sad, soon you will have a bigger laboratory, better equipment, and everything will be better than before. Li Chuan looked at the confused Dr. List, and patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. Dr. List's eyes lit up when he heard the words. It turned out that the Baron had already secretly reserved a way out. Like landing there, the top of the mountain. Li Chuan lowered his head to observe the terrain, pointed to the top of a small hill, and ordered to the Hydra pilot who was driving the helicopter. The Hydra pilot nodded quickly, and began to control the helicopter to descend to the top of the hill in the distance. The helicopter came to a complete stop, and Li Chuan took Dr. Lister and Dr. Smith out of the plane. Then, under the horrified and surprised eyes of the two, he swiftly broke the neck of the Hydra pilot. Afterwards, he also lifted the transformation technique, revealing his original appearance. Mr. Li Chuan, who are you? Your Lord Baron. When Dr. Smith saw Li Chuan, his terrified expression immediately turned into surprise, while on the contrary, Dr. Lister turned into panic. Dr. Smith, congratulations, you are saved. Li Chuan comforted Smith, then turned to look at the terrified Dr. Lister. I'm sorry, your Lord Baron was blown to pieces after you pressed the self-destruct device. Let me meet again. Li Chuan, the president of my Li group, is also your future boss. This. Dr. List looked at Li Chuan, moved his mouth to object, but remembered the pilot whose neck was broken by Li Chuan just now, and finally swallowed his words. People are knives and I am fish. If he doesn't want to die, he can only agree. Li Chuan saw that Dr. List was very interesting, so he didn't try to scare him anymore, but stepped forward and said politely. Dr. Lister, don't worry, as long as you work hard for me, I can give you what Hydra can give you, and I will give you more. Although he doesn't know much about the world of Marvel, he also knows that the scientists in this world are not fuel-efficient lamps. If they are used well, they will definitely be a huge wealth. Captain America's super soldier serum was made by Dr. Abraham Erskine. Dr. Banner studied gamma rays and turned himself into a Hulk. Dr. Octopus almost created a personal artificial sun, and there are too many extremist viruses. There are endless black technologies in the Marvel world, most of which are created by scientists. So if we can create a top team of scientists, whether it is to expand the company's scale for future research products, or to improve some genetic medicines and inject them to improve our own strength, that will be excellent. That's why he kept Dr. Lister from killing him all the way. To be honest, if he can develop a potion that can transform into a Hulk after injection and maintain his self-awareness, he will dare to chase after even a strong Cage in the world of Naruto and beat him violently. Master. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in front of him. Immediately afterwards, a dozen young men in camouflage uniforms and armed with various firearms appeared in front of Li Chuan under the leadership of an old man. It was Uncle Li who had been ordered by Li Chuan in advance and led his men to stand by at the foot of the mountain. Uncle Li, I'll leave the rest to you. I'll go home first. Wanda is still waiting for me to eat. Yes, Master. Seeing that Uncle Li and others appeared as planned, Li Chuan checked the time, didn't worry about the rest of the matter, and drove away first. Uncle Li is better at this kind of finishing work than him. 5 detonation talismans, 1 scroll of the fireball technique, 1 scroll of the shadow clone technique, a sharp long knife, a valuable jade Buddha, and a box of 999 cold spirits. While driving to his villa, Li Chuan opened up his mission item space. The quest item space is a storage space on the panel. Every time he completes side quests, the rewards he gets will be distributed to this storage space. He can take out the reward items obtained from the mission at any time, and he can also put them in again, which is very convenient. But the disadvantage is that it can only store the items rewarded by the mission, and other non-mission items cannot be put in. Even if he wrapped the long knife with tape and put it in, the tape would fall off automatically. If not, he wouldn't have to swallow Bingliong pills and bring them back. The top 3 items in the task item space are the result of completing the 3 tasks just now. This detonator is also okay. Of these 3 quest rewards, the best one is the How Fireball art. Because this is Uchiha's secret ninjutsu, it is difficult for others to inherit it except for the Uchiha clan. The shadow clone technique is more effective, but in fact, it will be easy to get it after he returns to the Naruto world. Although it is a B-level ninjutsu created by the 2nd generation of Naruto, because it is too practical, it has long been spread everywhere, and many ninja villages have improved on its basis. What kind of water body, soil body, thunder body, etc., are roughly the same. What is really difficult for Konoha to obtain is the A-level forbidden technique that was later upgraded by the 2nd generation of Hokage, the technique of multiple shadow clones, which can separate a large number of shadow clones at once. However, it consumes too much chakra. Generally, ninjas with insufficient chakra use it, and it is easy to hurt their own lives. As for the 5 detonating talismans rewarded for the last mission, it is really worthless. With his net worth in Hokage, he can easily buy quite a few. In the Marvel world, the explosive power is at most similar to that of a grenade. The only advantage, I guess, is that it is a piece of paper on the surface, and it is difficult for ordinary people to be wary when holding it in their hands. It is not bad for surprise and sneak attacks on the enemy. Moreover, modern detection devices are basically unable to detect it. Before 6 o'clock in the evening, Li Chuan finally drove back to his villa, but when he parked the car, he saw another familiar car. Is it Pietro? Pietro Maximoff, his brother-in-law and Wanda's twin brother, was born 12 minutes earlier than Wanda. This black car belongs to Pietro. Turning his mind, Li Chuan smiled helplessly. He roughly guessed why Pietro came here. It may be the Spanish delicacy Asturias stew. It was a bit difficult for his wife who was not very good at cooking, so he invited his brother who is proficient in cooking to help. Looks like we can have a nice dinner tonight. With Pietro's help, at least the dishes will not be as salty as they were in the morning 3 months ago, which is a good thing. And just taking advantage of Pietro's arrival, let's chat about going to New York to settle down. Good evening, Pietro. As soon as he opened the door and walked into the living room, Li Chuan saw the silver-haired uncle walking around in the kitchen to help. If you pay attention, you will find that his walking speed is much faster than normal people. Good evening, Chuan, if you don't mind if I have dinner at your place. Seeing Li Chuan come back, Pietro waved to him enthusiastically. Li Chuan smiled. Of course, welcome anytime. Honey, change your clothes first, it will be fine soon. Noticing Li Chuan's return, Wanda happily ran over with a spoon in his hand and kissed him, then immediately turned back to the kitchen. Seeing this, Pietro, who was chopping onions over there, suddenly showed a sad and relieved expression. The sad thing is that the 2 guys actually showed their affection in front of him, a single dog. The happy thing is that his sister has found her own happiness. When he first knew that his sister was in a relationship with Li Chuan, he opposed it. Li Chuan's previous reputation was not good, and he was worried that his sister would be cheated and eventually get hurt. But after contacting, I found that some rumors were really unbelievable. I'm here to help too. After changing into home clothes, Li Chuan naturally joined the ranks of kitchen helpers. After all, he was not the rich 2nd generation who was spoiled and raised since childhood, who ate, drank, prostituted and gambled. Born in poverty, he joined the teacher's school and went abroad to fight life and death in order to repay his teacher's kindness. Li Chuan's life experience in his previous life was never superior. Maybe in front of his subordinates and enemies, he is majestic and ruthless, and he will not even frown when he kills a person, which makes people feel very scary. But in fact, he is not a bloodthirsty person, and he never kills some innocent people indiscriminately. So when there is no danger, he is still the ordinary person in his previous life who likes to practice martial arts with his brothers, eat, clean up, and go down the river to bathe and fish. This is why whether it is Wanda, Pietro, or the normal employees in the company, they all think that the President Lee Chuan has a good temper and is easy to get along with. Just talking and laughing like this, soon all the delicacies that were going to be prepared were on the table. Wait a minute, it's a little less. When the three of them sat at the dining table and were about to eat, Wanda suddenly stood up again. Lee Chuan and Pietro looked at each other and said at the same time, "The Dick Van Dyke Show." The Dick Van Dyke Show, a sitcom and Wanda's favorite TV show. Before Wanda and Pietro's parents died, their family lived a poor life, and their father supported their family by selling CDs. Every night at dinner, the family would sit together and watch the CD of The Dick Van Dyke Show that my father kept at the bottom of the box and was reluctant to sell it. The answer is correct, and each of you will be rewarded with a grilled sausage. Wanda forked a sausage for Lee Chuan and Pietro each, then picked up the remote control to turn on the TV, and played a funny sitcom. If in the general upper-class society, this kind of behavior of watching TV while eating is definitely not acceptable, and it is considered rude behavior that does not understand table manners. But Lee Chuan never minded these things. In his previous life, he liked to squat in the yard with his brothers and sisters holding bowls and watch TV. Later, he did the same when he was abroad alone, and sitcoms were the most popular meal. Perhaps it is precisely because of Lee Chuan's very civilian behaviors and habits that Wanda really let go of her guard and fell in love with him. Otherwise, money and courteousness alone can only seduce those gold diggers who love vanity and money, but it can't make Wanda, who is full of hatred in his heart, let go of his hatred and fall in love with him. It is not difficult to complete the main task of the system. How can it be so easy to reach the advanced level and strive for the best rewards? You can't get to the stage of marriage without exchanging real feelings for real feelings. By the way, Wanda, I have something I want to discuss with you. Halfway through dinner, Lee Chuan suddenly spoke. What's the matter, honey? Wanda giggled, looked away from the TV, and turned to look at Lee Chuan. Lee Chuan pretended to cough, and then said slowly, "It's like this, Wanda, the company's business has no room for improvement in Sokovia at present, and I want to enter the United States and expand the company's operations. So, we might be going to New York to settle in for a while." Quote, "Do you have to go to America?" Wanda, who was still giggling because of the TV, suddenly frowned, showing an embarrassed expression. "I know it's not that simple." Looking at Wanda's expression, Lee Chuan secretly sighed. The task difficulty given by the panel is usually linked to rewards, and being able to enter the small world for 6 months is obviously not a random reward. So it is not as easy as imagined to take Wanda to live in New York. In fact, Lee Chuan prefers tasks like the extermination of Hydra before, because that kind of task is actually the task he is best at. He knew why Wanda didn't want to settle in the United States, because Wanda hated that country from the bottom of her heart, especially New York, where the headquarters of the Stark Group was located. Wanda's parents were killed by the missile made by Stark, because her potential magical ability modified the probability of the missile explosion, so that the second missile that fell in front of her and Pietro did not explode. If you don't want to go, then don't go. Anyway, there are private jets. I can fly both ways if I have something to do, just like driving to and from get off work. Originally, Lee Chuan wanted to use Wanda and Pizarro's hatred for the Stark Group to urge Wanda and him to go to New York. He had already thought up the general explanation before entering the door. But when he saw Wanda's expression, he changed his words involuntarily. Although he also wants to become stronger faster and then have enough ability to protect Wanda, but if he does anything by hook or by crook, has it deviated from his original intention? There have always been side missions, and there will always be missions that reward small world time. And as he just said, it is just a little troublesome to fly back and forth between New York and Sokovia by private jet. Today, he can use means to get Wanda to go to New York with him because he wants to become stronger. Then the panel in the future will issue a mission for him to kill Wanda, and he will get rewards beyond his imagination. Will he also choose to sacrifice Wanda? If everything is just to become stronger, what's the point of becoming the strongest one? At this moment, Li Chuan suddenly felt relieved. Yes, that's the decision, let's eat. No, let's go and settle in New York, I think, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. However, just after Li Chuan finished a series of psychological construction, he decided to give up that side task, but Wanda suddenly looked at him, and changed his mind with a smile. Wanda, you. Li Chuan showed a confused expression, because he couldn't figure out why Wanda suddenly changed his mind. Seeing Li Chuan's bewildered expression, Wanda suddenly burst out laughing again. Anyway, I don't live there all my life. It's not a bad thing to visit other countries. She hates America, hates the Stark group. Especially every time I see the news about that playboy on the news, compare her and her brother's painful experiences as orphans over the years, and think about the fear of those 2 days and nights. She wished she could pay all the price to gain power, destroy that country, destroy that playboy. However, that was her 3 years ago. The appearance of Li Chuan, the beautiful love and the happy life now have made her gradually let go of her hatred. She also figured it out. Those missiles were indeed made by the Stark group, but it wasn't the playboy or the innocent civilians in that country who launched the missiles, but those ugly politicians and generals. You can't let yourself live in hatred all the time because of this, and dare not face a new life. So compared to not wanting to settle down in New York, she doesn't want her lover Li Chuan to fly back and forth between 2 countries every day, which is too hard. And just now she just showed a little disgust. Li Chuan immediately changed her words, which made her feel really happy. As a qualified wife, she should not hold back Li Chuan, but support him to complete his career. You don't mind bringing me one. I also want to visit the metropolis of New York. There should be couriers there. At this time, Pietro interjected with a smile. He only had his sister as a relative, so naturally he couldn't stay too far away. And he is also the one who understands his sister's personality best. Although Wanda is usually very good and has a good personality, she looks clumsy when learning to cook, but in fact Wanda is a bit extreme in her heart. Before, for Stark's hatred, Wanda was more powerful than him. He also hated Stark, hated that playboy, but to be honest, if he tied that playboy in front of him, he might not be able to kill him. But Wanda from 3 years ago definitely could. So he was really grateful for Li Chuan's appearance, which made Wanda's hatred fade away. But just in case, he felt that he should not be too far away from Wanda. After all, Li Chuan was just an ordinary person with a kind personality, and he didn't know that Wanda had some special abilities. One day Wanda got excited and ran to seek revenge on Stark, then it would be troublesome. You are very welcome, Pietro. You don't need to deliver the courier, I can introduce you to a better job. Li Chuan looked at Wanda and Pietro, suddenly understood something in his heart, and then nodded with some emotion. He overlooked one thing. Because of his appearance 3 years ago, in fact, many things have deviated from the original. When he was thinking about things, he could no longer take it for granted to make judgments based on some information in the movies he saw in his previous life. If he really followed the plan before entering the door just now, maybe the task could not be completed at all, and it would bring very bad consequences instead. Sometimes this kind of task that can't be solved by force is more difficult to complete than the kind of task that can be done as long as the strength is strong. To be honest, he prefers to go up and do it with real knives and guns, rather than calculating, but sometimes in order to complete the task, he must use his brain more. Oh, that's not necessary. You know that my only advantage is that I run faster. Compared to sitting in the office and facing the computer, I prefer to deliver couriers. Pietro shrugged and smiled. He didn't refuse out of self-esteem, but he really liked jobs like delivering couriers. This kind of job was much easier for him than other jobs, and he didn't need to use his brain. Hurry up and eat. The food I cooked carefully will be cold soon. While the two were talking, Wanda scooped up a large spoonful of a stir-in stew for each of her 2 closest relatives. After dinner, Pietro bid farewell and left, leaving only Li Chuan and Wanda in the living room. Honey, you go up and take a shower first, and I'll clean up these dishes. Wanda put on her apron again and got ready to do the scrubbing. However, before the apron was fastened, Li Chuan stepped forward and picked up Wanda, and walked straight up to the 2nd floor. There's nothing to do at work tomorrow. I'll clean it up for you when I get up in the morning. Now I prefer two people to wash together. It is said that a little farewell is better than a newlywed. For Wanda, he and Li Chuan had only parted for less than a day, but for Li Chuan, it was a full 3 months. So, tonight, doomed to sleepless. A month later, in a secret base on the outskirts of Sokovia. Li Chuan quickly made a seal against the specially made target in front of him. Si Wei Shen Hai Noon Yin, Fire Escape, the Art of Fireball. Suddenly, a big fireball spewed out from his mouth, and slammed forward fiercely. Boom! The specially made fireproof metal target was not burned, but it was also obviously distorted. I have learned it temporarily, but if I want to exert my full power, I still have a long way to go. I reached out and clicked on the machine responsible for detection and recording next to it, and the machine immediately reported the detection result. The diameter of the fireball is 2.1 meters, the temperature is 3,200 degrees, and the impact force. Looking at the above data, Li Chuan shook his head secretly. According to Lulu's teachings, the same ninjutsu, different ninjas have different powers. The understanding of ninjutsu, the control of chakra and the amount of chakra will all affect the power of the final release of ninjutsu. Just like this fireball technique, he estimated that if Itachi released it, it would be at least 10 meters in diameter, and if it was Madara, it might be hundreds of meters in diameter. You need to spend more time practicing. Originally, after returning last time, he planned to go to New York to settle down within a week, but it happened that Dr. Smith and Dr. Lister had made progress in the research on Bingliang Wan. So, he slowed down time. One is that he wants to wait for the two PhDs to research new products for the company, and release the new products in New York to open up the market. The second is that Sokovia is the base camp after all, and many things are very convenient. For example, if he is practicing ninjutsu now, he can go to the secret base he built a long time ago. But if you go to New York, it's not so convenient. And New York, as the most prosperous metropolis in the United States, has many SHIELD agents, Hydra agents, superheroes and various hidden messy forces there. Learn the art of fireball and the art of shadow clone, and if something happens, you can guarantee your safety. Boss, Dr. Smith came to you and said that a new drug has been successfully developed. Just when Li Chuan was about to continue practicing the skill of how fireball, Xiaolu's voice came from the machine. Understood, let him wait for me in the office. Hearing that the new drug was successfully developed, Li Chuan's eyes lit up, he put away the chakra in his body, turned and left the practice room. He has mastered both the shadow clone technique and the fireball technique, and now if the new medicine is good, he can go to New York immediately. Through the pill you provided, Dr. List and I have analyzed several characteristics, but there are only two of them that can be transformed and made. One is to restore physical strength, and the other is to resist hunger. Based on the two characteristics that have been analyzed, we conducted experiments to find alternative substances, and then developed these two new drugs. Quote. While explaining, Dr. Smith handed a box to Li Chuan. Li Chuan took the box, and there were two pills, one blue and one green. What's the general effect? After testing, Blue's new physical strength recovery drug can allow a normal adult man to recover half of his physical strength in an instant after exhaustion, and can be taken again after an interval of 3 hours. Among them, the stronger the body, the worse the effect, and the weaker the body, the better the effect, but the stronger the body, the shorter the interval between medications, and the weaker the body, the longer the interval between medications. Quote. Dr. Smith first pointed to the blue pill and introduced. Li Chuan nodded. It means that those strong bodybuilders who are physically exhausted may not be able to recover to half of it after taking it, maybe only a third or a quarter, but they can take it again without waiting for 3 hours. And some people with poor health, like old people or children, may recover more than half of their physical strength in an instant after taking it, or even recover completely immediately, but it takes 5 or 6 hours before taking it. Is that what you mean? Quote. Yes, specifically, we will continue to test and come up with a detailed and complete data sheet. Dr. Smith picked up the green pill and continued. Green anti-hunger pills, a normal adult man can take one without eating for a day, and can take up to 3 pills at a time. Similarly, there will be slight deviations depending on the body shape of the user. Quote. Very well, roughly how much does it cost for 2 pills? Li Chuan closed the box and put it on the table. The cost of the pill will be related to the profit of subsequent sales. If the cost is too high to make a profit, there is no need to produce it. Dr. Smith proudly raised his head. Don't worry about this. If the cost is too high, I wouldn't say the experiment was successful. The average production cost of the blue pill is only 1 sauron, while the cost of the green pill is even lower, only half a sauron. Quote. Very good, it's much lower than the cost of Dolly pill. Hearing that Dr. Smith reported the cost, Li Chuan immediately smiled. Sauron is the currency of Sokovia, and the value of 1 sauron is about the same as 1 yuan in China, while the production cost of Dolly Yuan was 5 saurons. However, Daliwin took the high-end route. The price of 1 pill was as high as 1,000 saurons, and the profit was quite high. A pill of 1,000 yuan sounds expensive, but there has never been a shortage of rich people in this world. In order to regain their glory and maintain their health, many people will buy it, let alone 1,000 yuan. And not only the rich, but also some middle and lower bourgeois people can afford to spend 1 or 2,000 to buy 2 from time to time. It is also the 200 times the profit of Dolly pill that makes the Li group from the third rate to the first rate again. Long-term use of Dolly pills can improve physical strength, and the ingredients used are much better. The effect of the blue and green pills is only temporary, so the ingredients used are quite different. Dr. Smith explained why in one sentence. The blue pill can be used in conjunction with the Dolly pill, and the price is as high as 500, while the green pill is sold at a low price, just 1 piece. It doesn't make much money. The main reason is to make the name of the Li group faster. Looking at the 2 small pills on the table, Li Chuan already had a plan in mind. The Dolly pill and the blue pill continue to take the high-end route together, and the Dolly pill is long-lasting. Those middle-aged and elderly company bosses will definitely like it. As for the green anti-hunger pills, there is no need to sell them at a high price, because this is not a war era, and most people's living standards are good, so they can't even afford to eat. The role of the green pill is only needed by those who are really living in poverty. The purpose of selling it at a low price is to do charity and continue to establish his personality as a philanthropist. Don't underestimate this character. As long as he has an excellent reputation in the eyes of the public, the government will have to weigh his influence if he wants to move him. $1 can feed 1 day, how many poor people can be saved? And as long as the amount goes up, you can actually earn some money. After all, if many low-income people need to save money, it is common to use this method to save a period of time occasionally. Specifically, it will still be handed over to Jack, who is in charge of publicity and sales. The idea is this way, but it is best to leave professional things to professional people. Thank you, Dr. Smith. If you need anything, you can find Uncle Lee. The Hydra organization that kidnapped you is very large. Before I deal with them, you can't leave the base for free activities for the time being. Based on Lister's confession, the person who wanted the Dolly pill formula was a Hydra leader named John Garrett, who was an important 8th-level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. The Hydra base in Sokovia was bombed, and Hydra will definitely investigate. If Dr. Smith, who was originally tied to the base, returned home safely and continued to work in the Lee group, it won't be long before Hydra's agents will definitely come to the door again. So 3 days after the Sokovia base was bombed, he reported the disappearance to the police in Sokovia, and pretended to mobilize all connections to find Dr. Smith, giving people the illusion of not knowing that Smith was kidnapped by Hydra. Of course, if that John Garrett wants Daliwin to match, he will definitely trouble him in the end, but at least in his eyes, Li Chuan is just an ordinary rich businessman boss. Moreover, it is not the entire Hydra that wants the Dolly pill formula, but John Garrett's side. I understand, it's okay. If you hadn't come to save me, I might be dead now. Besides, I quite like doing research without being disturbed. Dr. Smith waved his hand, obviously not concerned about the life of not being able to go out. I would also like to trouble you to keep an eye on Dr. Lister for me, so as not to cause him any trouble. When Dr. Smith was about to leave, Li Chuan thought for a while, and then gave another warning. Dr. List was forced to join the group by him, so he must be unwilling to do so, so he had to take precautions. But he is not S.H.I.E.L.D., and he will not treat List like Zola. List has no freedom with him, and he is not a trustworthy member. He is a prisoner, but Li Chuan needs to use his research ability, so he is given better food and accommodation than the prisoner. Maybe one day when List is useless to him and no longer threatens him, he will consider letting him go. A certain hidden base of Hydra, several virtual images popped up slowly. It's been a month, have you figured out why Baron Starak's base blew up? Did Nick Fury notice something moving? It shouldn't be. If Nick Fury notices it, I will know it immediately. He is now focusing on preparing his Avengers plan. He was still discussing this matter with me yesterday and asked me to help apply to the Security Council funds. What did the survivors say? I just received a defense order in the base before the explosion, and I don't know the rest. Let's put this matter aside for now. It may be that the supernatural beings he studied had a problem and used some special ability to press the self-destruct switch. As I said long ago, don't focus on that kind of useless thing. We should now fully complete the Insight Plan. Once the Insight Plan is successful, all of our Hydra can come out of the darkness openly and rule the whole world. Quote, "Long live Hydra! Long live Hydra! Long live Hydra!" A simple Hydra high-level conversation ended, and the screen gradually dimmed. The lights in the room came on, and a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s slowly stood up. He paced back and forth in the room for a few steps, and then pressed a button. "Ward, come to my place." This man was none other than John Garrett, one of the Hydra leaders who had previously traded with Baron Strucker. He was originally an excellent agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he had to wait to die because of organ failure due to performing a mission. During this period, he joined Hydra's Death Warrior transformation plan to temporarily prolong his life. In order to get rid of the threat of death and become a superhuman, he resolutely betrayed S.H.I.E.L.D., fell into the arms of Hydra, and became a double agent. It is precisely because of the dual identity of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra that he cultivated a group of forces loyal to him. Because I learned that the Dolly pill, which is now best-selling in the world, has the effect of strengthening the body after long-term use, I made a deal with Baron Strucker, the head of the Hydra base in Sokovia. In exchange for Dr. Smith, who invented Dolly pill and the corresponding formula, he exchanged the partial list of supernatural beings that he knew from within the purview of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's just that I didn't expect to receive the news that the Sokovia base blew up just after receiving the transaction notice from Baron Starak and before arriving at the location. Now that Dr. Smith is dead, if he wants to get the formula of Dolly pill, he can only attack the president of the Lee Group. "Garrett, what mission?" After a while, a handsome and cold young man opened the door and walked in. Garrett looked at the youth and nodded. "That's right, Ward, you're getting me better now, look at this." As he spoke, he handed a stack of materials to a young man named Ward. Ward took the file and glanced at it. On the top is a photo of a Chinese man with a gentle smile, and below is his detailed information. Name, Li Chuan, age, 20, chairman of Lee Group. Get the formula of Dolly pill and find out the origin of Dolly pill, it's that simple. Garrett ordered. Ward put away the information and nodded. Clear. As a top agent who can defuse nuclear bombs, this task is too simple for him. The target is just an ordinary businessman, at most he has some good bodyguards. In the early morning, the private airport of the Lee family in Sokovia. "Uncle Lee, I will leave the business here to you for the time being. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me." After a few words with Uncle Lee, Li Chuan boarded his private jet with his wife Wanda and brother-in-law Pietro. Now that the new drug has been put into production, and Jack's preparations in New York have basically been completed, it's time to go to New York to settle down and get those 6 months of small world time. If he remembers correctly, it seems that the Chitauri aliens invaded the Earth in 2012, which is not a few years away. It is not a wise choice not to work hard to improve the strength and pin all the fate on the Avengers. Mainly because of his appearance now, there has been quite a butterfly effect. It is really hard to say what will happen in the future. The Scarlet Witch became his wife and did not join Hydra, and the Sokovia base that Avengers 2 was going to deal with was also bombed by him in advance. Now he is going to New York. In order to complete the task to get rewards, he doesn't know how many changes he has to make. But he felt that it was all worth it. Only when he was strong could he take the initiative. You can't always pin your hopes on other people. 7 hours later, the moment the plane just landed, Li Chuan heard the mission prompt from the panel. The side mission to settle in New York is completed, and 6 months have been issued, which can be used to enter any small world for 6 months. Finally, you can practice again. Although you can also practice ninjutsu in the Marvel world, it is very inconvenient. If you don't go to the base, you may be discovered if you are not careful. And practicing ninjutsu and martial arts is the same principle, that is, if you are capable alone, you will never be able to become a master at any time. You must actually fight in order to improve your strength more quickly. The reason why the strength of the ninja monks in the Temple of Fire is not good is because they all stay in the temple and practice to death by themselves. Take a look at the ninjas of the 5 great ninja villages, which powerful ninjas were not killed from the mountains of corpses and blood. Many of them have experienced cruel wars. Even the new generation has many difficult tasks to hone themselves. Li Chuan couldn't find anyone who could practice ninjutsu in the main world. Except for Chakra, the improvement in other aspects was not fast. After arriving at the new home, immediately go to Naruto world to practice. After getting off the plane, in the car heading to his new home, Li Chuan secretly made a decision while listening to Jack's report on the situation in New York. However, at this moment, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a monitor hanging on a building outside the car window, which was reporting a piece of news. Big news, according to the latest news, Stark Group CEO, Playboy Tony Stark has been confirmed missing in Afghanistan, at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, Tony Stark. Please continue to pay attention to the Daily Bugle for specific follow-up. I am your favorite host J. Jonah Jameson. Quote, I didn't expect to see such good news as soon as I entered New York. Wanda, who was sitting next to Li Chuan, also discovered the news being reported outside the car window at this time, and couldn't help feeling much better in an instant. Although she has let go of her hatred for Stark now, she still couldn't help gloating when she heard such news. But at the same time, Li Chuan heard the reminder of a new side mission again. Chapter 21. Side Mission. Rescue Dr. Ethan, save Dr. Ethan from terrorists. Reward. A-level ninjutsu Palm Fairy. Quote, opening the panel and checking the new side missions, Li Chuan began to recall the memories of his previous life. Dr. Ethan, is that the doctor who helped Stark make the armor and died at the end? He remembered that when Tony Stark was imprisoned, there seemed to be a doctor named Ethan. Not only saved Tony Stark's life, but also helped him secretly make the first generation of steel suits. In the end, he was shot to death in order to gain time during the breakout. Do you want to accept this task? After thinking for a while, Li Chuan decided to temporarily change his plan to go to Naruto World and complete this task first. A-level medical ninjutsu Palm Immortal Jutsu, this is a ninjutsu that he must not let go. No one can guarantee that they will not be injured in the battle, but the Palm Immortal technique can treat both internal and external injuries, and at the same time, it can make people unconscious by interfering with the circulation of the human body. Learning this ninjutsu can greatly increase the survival rate, and it will also be of great help to some of his plans to return to Hokage later. Okay, Jack, you all go back first, this is too eye-catching. When the convoy drove to a not-so-busy street in Queens, Li Chuan asked Jack and all the bodyguards to leave first, and then drove by himself, taking Wanda and Pietro on the way. After deciding to settle in New York a month ago, Li Chuan discussed with Wanda about the location of the settlement. New York is the largest metropolis in the United States, with 5 districts under its jurisdiction, namely Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx and Staten Island. Li Chuan's original idea was to buy a villa to live in the most prosperous Manhattan area, because it was closer to the new company's building and it was more convenient to go back and forth. But after thinking about it for a while, the location of the Avengers World War I was in Manhattan, and it was too dangerous for Wanda to live there, so I gave up. The next thing he thought of was Queens, which was only separated from Manhattan by the East River, and not too far from his company, and it was also a district with the best natural scenery. In his previous life, he fought life and death in New York, and he also lived in Queens, so he is quite familiar with this area. As for law and order, the safety of Queens should be regarded as the best in several districts. In the future, there will be a good neighbor, Spider-Man, who will maintain law and order everywhere with spider webs. Wanda has no opinion on settling in Queens, but she disagrees with buying a villa to live in. The reason is that living in the villa area is too boring and deserted. When Li Chuan goes to work, she is the only one at home. She wants to live in that kind of ordinary residential building, and then she can meet new neighbors, discuss cooking and raising children with other wives, exchange some gifts and so on. She doesn't like the life of a high-class lady. Her ideal life is like that in The Dick Van Dyke Show, which is plain but full of little pleasures in life. In this regard, Li Chuan agreed without too much hesitation. Considering his career, Wanda accompanied him to settle in New York, so he also had to consider Wanda's feelings. In fact, he himself didn't have any special feelings about living in villas and residential buildings. He chose a villa because he simply felt that it would be safer for Wanda. And living in a residential building is not a big problem. Because before arriving in New York, he had ordered Xiaolu to come over and replace all the properties in the community where he was going to live with his own people. From the day he moved in, all the security guards in the community were all the most elite men he had trained. Each of them has extraordinary skills, has taken the best quality Dalian for many years, and has also received professional firearms training. Different from the dolly pills that were shot outside, the dolly pills taken by Li Chuan and his subordinates are all refined versions that have been improved later, and long-term use will increase the strength more obviously. It's just that compared with the effect of the ointment he obtained from side missions, it is still much worse. At the same time, he also bought the houses with the best sniper angles for their rooms in the whole community in advance, and arranged corresponding snipers. If there is an enemy, these snipers will blow their heads off as soon as possible. Of course, these things must not be said to Wanda. Because in Wanda's eyes, Li Chuan has always been a kind-hearted legal businessman, a philanthropist praised by everyone in Sokovia, and a good husband who helps with housework at home. Li Chuan didn't mean to hide Wanda's things on purpose, but he set up a good character when he chased Wanda at the beginning, and he was also the same character in front of the public, and suddenly let Wanda see his dark side, afraid that she would be a little bit difficult to accept. What's more, although he does things ruthlessly and never shows mercy to his enemies, he doesn't want his wife and future children to think that he is a bad person. He has already embarked on this path because of his previous life. In order to be strong and protect those he cares about, he must be ruthless. If he is strong enough in the future, there will be no major crisis in the world. He also hopes that his child will grow up to be a kind, happy person with a sense of justice. And not like him. Okay, our new home has arrived. Under the respectful eyes of two burly security guards, Li Chuan parked the car in the open-air parking area of the community. To be honest, as expected of a metropolis, the security guards in the community look very safe. When Pietro got out of the car, he couldn't help complaining. He works as a courier, and he often runs around various communities in Sokovia. Most of the security guards there are old men, or middle-aged people with a big belly. It is rare to really hire a young and strong guy as a security guard, unless it is a real high-end community. But their current neighborhood is obviously the most ordinary kind of neighborhood, and the two security guards at the gate are at least 1.9 meters tall, and they can feel the explosive muscles in their security uniforms. Not to mention security guards, maybe you can win an award if you become a bodybuilder. It is because the public security of this community is good that I chose this community on purpose. Li Chuan explained with a smile while carrying the luggage in the car. There's no way, it's not that he doesn't want to keep a low profile, but his subordinates have been taking the essence version of dolly pill for a long time, so their bodies will inevitably be affected. Just like his male secretary Xiaolu, those who didn't know always thought that Xiaolu was his bodyguard, although it was indeed. The boss's secretary is either a big beauty with a curvy figure, or a gentle elite man with glasses, and his secretary is Xiaolu. With a bald head, a height of 1.9 meters, a fierce face, and a body full of tendons, he belongs to the type that children will cry when they smile. At first, Li Chuan wanted to pick a part-time secretary with a slightly more refined appearance from among his subordinates. But there is no way, everyone is good at killing and fighting, and it is basically useless for secretarial work such as handling some documents and arranging schedules. On the contrary, Xiaolu, who has the most vicious appearance among them, is very talented in this aspect, not even inferior to other people's real secretary, and he is also very patient in doing things. In fact, This is also good, at least some small characters who want to get his ideas, just looking at Xiaolu who follows him every day, are already afraid to act. Go, I want to see our new home quickly. Wanda interrupted the conversation between her brother and her husband, and walked ahead excitedly. On the other hand, Li Chuan and Pietro packed all kinds of things, and followed behind helplessly. I said, sister, it is necessary for you to bring so many things here. Didn't Chuan say that he asked Jack to buy all the things that will be used in advance? Pietro was carrying a backpack and pulling a box in one hand, with a puzzled face. Because Li Chuan told him in advance that everything was arranged, so he carried a backpack with some important things in it, but nothing else. You alone don't understand. There are many memories of me and Chuan in these, the gifts we exchanged during festivals, photos and souvenirs together, etc. You must bring them with you. Wanda stopped, then turned around and saw that Li Chuan was carrying a lot of things in both hands, and immediately came back with distress to take some. Pietro felt that 2 knives were stabbed in his heart instantly. Fortunately, I don't live in the same room with you, it seems that I have to find a girlfriend sooner. At this moment, 4 strong security guards suddenly appeared and blocked the way of the 3 of them. Pietro subconsciously let go of the box and protected Li Chuan and Wanda behind. Is there a problem? The leading security guard grinned and said. I am the security captain of this community. Are you new residents? Yes, we just moved in today. Li Chuan replied with a smile. You are welcome to live in the community. We provide free moving services for new friends. Just leave your things to us. The security captain waved his hand, and the 3 security guards behind him immediately enthusiastically stepped forward to take all their luggage. Then thank you. Pietro and Wanda were stunned, and at the same time secretly sighed that the service in this community is really good. So, with the enthusiastic help of the security guards in the community, all the luggage was quickly sent to the 2 adjacent houses that Li Chuan bought. But when the security guards were about to leave, Li Chuan whispered to the security captain. Little San, send someone to check on Obadiah Stannis, the shareholder of Stark Enterprises. Yes, the security captain is naturally one of his subordinates. The difficulty of rescuing Dr. Ethan does not lie in those terrorists. With his current strength, it is not too difficult to deal with those terrorists. The difficulty is finding out where they are. Li Chuan just remembered that the base of those terrorists seemed to be in a desert, but he didn't know exactly where it was. But he doesn't know. There is one person who definitely knows, and that is Obadiah Stannis, the shareholder of the Stark Group. Because he hired terrorists to kill Tony Stark and occupy the entire Stark Group. It's just that he didn't expect that those terrorists violated the deal. Instead of killing Tony, they wanted to use Tony to help them make weapons. In the early morning, when Li Chuan and Wanda were embracing and sleeping in their new home, an unexpected visitor also came outside the gate of the community. Grant Ward, a 7th-level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., an expert in action and weapons, was imprisoned in a detention center for trying to burn his brother and parents to death when he was a teenager, and was later discovered by John Garrett, who single-handedly trained him as the top double agent. 2 days ago, I received Garrett's task and decided to secretly kidnap Li Chuan, the chairman of the Li Group, and obtain the formula of Dolly Pill from him in order to perfect the Death Warrior plan. Originally, he planned to do it directly in Sokovia, but after investigation, he found that Li Chuan was going to take his wife to live in New York, so he immediately changed his plan and set the action location in New York. The Li family has been entrenched in Sokovia for many years, and now it has entered its heyday under the hands of Li Chuan. It is actually not so easy to kidnap this rich man in Sokovia silently. The key is that the explosion at the Hydra base in Sokovia caused a great commotion, and it has not yet fully recovered, and Hydra's intelligence system is still paralyzed locally. But it is different in New York. Whether it is the intelligence of S.H.I.E.L.D. or the intelligence system of Hydra, he can use it and can formulate a perfect action plan. Just like now, before Li Chuan moved to New York, he already knew the neighborhood where Li Chuan lived and the specific house number. Although I don't understand why the other party didn't choose a villa, but chose to live in an ordinary residential building, but for now, tonight is the best time. After checking all the tools, Grant started the car and drove towards the gate of the community. His plan was very simple. He entered the community and parked the car, went upstairs and unlocked it to sneak into the room, knocked Li Chuan out and put it in the box, then went downstairs to load the car and went to Hydra's base to use the hypnosis device to interrogate the information. If it goes well, maybe he can send Li Chuan back before dawn. At most he will feel a little headache when he wakes up the next day. It's not right, these two security guards are not in the information. When he successfully entered the community with the forged access card, Grant glanced at the two security guards who were dozing off in the security booth, and his pupils shrank. He had already memorized the security information of this community yesterday. He knew the names of the 4 middle-aged people and the 2 elderly people, as well as the general experience and background. And the 2 security guards in front of them, who are so explosive just by looking at their size, are not in the scope of the data at all. Is it a coincidence or has something to do with Li Chuan? Grant preferred the latter, and the security guards changed on the day Li Chuan moved in. He said that the possibility of a coincidence was too low, but he did not give up the mission because of this. Even if the security guards were replaced by people arranged by Li Chuan, it wouldn't be a big problem. It doesn't mean that he has a strong body and high fighting power. As a top action master, his fighting ability can knock down a dozen of ordinary big men with his bare hands, let alone if he is carrying a weapon. And he didn't want to fight head on, he just sneaked in, trying not to let these security guards find out. When Grant's car turned to the parking lot, the 2 security guards who were dozing off in the security room immediately got up and picked up the walkie-talkie to report. Third brother, there are non-community residents entering the community, black Chevrolet, license plate EVJ 4329. Grant memorized the information of all the security guards in the community in advance, but Li Chuan and his subordinates are also not bad. They also memorized the information of all the residents in the community long before they took up the post of security today. Any stranger entering the community will be closely monitored by Li Chuan's subordinates, especially those who enter the community and approach Li Chuan's room at night. Even if a courier is standing at the door of Li Chuan's house during the day, there will be at least 3 sniper rifles aimed at his head from different angles. I just saw a car that was not listed in the residence's information of the community appear at the gate of the community. The 2 security guards immediately became vigilant and secretly observed the owner and the car pretending to be dozing off. Received, a group went to the parking lot to track and monitor, and the second sniper is ready. Hearing the reminder from the intercom, Li San quickly found the Chevrolet that was about to arrive at the parking lot through the monitoring equipment of the entire community. Entering the community at this point is not a permanent resident, which is very suspicious. Should I notify the boss? Asked the subordinate next to him. Li San shook his head. I don't need it for the time being. I haven't confirmed that it's an enemy. It may be a friend or relative of a resident in the community who came over. After speaking, he thought for a while and pressed the intercom. One group pay attention. If the other party's target is the number 8 building where the boss lives, then take it down in advance and ask. Regarding the safety of the boss, his idea is that he would rather kill the wrong than let it go. Once the other party wants to enter the number 8 building where the boss lives, it may pose a threat to the safety of the boss. At that time, regardless of whether it is a relative or friend of a resident of the community, first win it and then talk about it. If you really made a mistake in the investigation after the event, you should apologize and give more money. The second and third groups are ready to support at any time. The second sniper, if the enemy resists fiercely, kill him immediately. Receive. There was a crisp reply from the intercom. At this time Grant, who had just parked the car, was getting out of the car with a big suitcase, when suddenly his hair stood on end, and a very bad feeling emerged in his heart. Years of undercover agents told him that he was being watched, possibly even targeted by snipers. This Li Chuan is definitely not simple. Grant just paused for a moment, and then he pretended to be nonchalant and continued on his way. His appearance didn't look bad at all, and his acting skills could be said to be at the level of an actor. Now he still doesn't understand. The 2 security guards he saw just now are definitely Li Chuan's bodyguards, and the person who is secretly monitoring and targeting him now must also be Li Chuan's bodyguards. Such strict and prudent protection is rare even among the world's top rich people. Fortunately, I also prepared in advance. As a top agent, he can complete the task perfectly every time, and Grant's mind is also quite meticulous. After noticing the abnormality, he didn't go to the building where Li Chuan lived, but went to the building next to Li Chuan, took the elevator to the top floor, took out the key, opened the door and walked into a room. This is a house for a single woman who lives alone in the workplace. It is relatively open and likes to go to the bar to have a good time. She often brings men back to have sex. Today, she was secretly brought down by Grant just after get off work, and took away her keys. However, he knew that he had to act quickly. If the other party was cautious enough, the problem would be discovered soon. Third brother, he entered building number 9, the 25th floor, the house of Readily Gallia. Hearing the report from the walkie-talkie, Lee San frowned, and quickly recalled Lei Dilly's information in his mind, and then couldn't help muttering. Could it be that the person who had a relationship with Lei Dilly came to look for her at night? After thinking about it for a while, he told his subordinates next to him. Quickly, call me today's monitoring to see if Lei Dilly has not come back since she went out in the morning. It will take 2 minutes. The subordinate entered Lei Dilly's face into the computer, then imported it into the monitoring of the community for a day, and quickly scanned it with the intelligence system. If people watch it, even if it is fast-forwarded, it will take a few hours to watch a day's surveillance, but Li Chuan is well aware of the power of technology and equips the bodyguard team with the most expensive and advanced equipment. About 2 minutes later, the man reported. Readily left the community at 8:30 in the morning and has not returned so far. Not good. The first group immediately went into the house to capture the target, and the second and third groups went upstairs to support and try to capture them alive. All snipers are ready. If the target enters the cordon, they will be killed immediately. Today is Monday. Lei Dilly usually goes to the bar to have sex from Friday to Sunday, and even if she goes out to have sex, it is not normal for the man to come over if she is not around. With so many doubts, there is no need to think about anything. However, in order to prevent unnecessary trouble caused by gunshots, it is best not to use guns when it is not particularly dangerous. This is what the boss specifically explained in advance. Because Li Chuan felt that once the gun incident became a big issue, it would affect Wanda's normal life. Of course, if the other party has already entered the cordon and starts to pose a threat to Wanda's safety, then don't care so much, just shoot and kill the matter. So fast, it seems that we will retreat first today. After changing into night clothes, Grant, who was about to use a rope gun to nail to building number 8 opposite, and then slid over to take Li Chuan away, sighed secretly when he heard the knock on the door. He felt that it would take at least half an hour for the other party to react, but he didn't expect it to be only 2 minutes. Now even if he had tied up the target in the past, it was impossible to take him away from the community under such strict protection. He could only retreat first and act next time. Turning the direction of the rope gun, he shot at the building on the left that was closer to the outside of the community. After fixing it, he turned and faced the 2 community security guards who had already broken in. These 2 security guards must be resolved before he can evacuate safely, otherwise he will die laughing when he slides halfway and the line is cut. With his skill, he can knock down the 2 guys in front of him in 2 seconds. Fake, the 2 miscellaneous soldiers are so skilled. Grant covered his bruised eye, bent over for a while, and then slid out along the rope with the tool bag on his back. He did bring down the 2 security guards, but it took 30 seconds instead of 2 seconds. He was still afraid that reinforcements would come up from behind, so he took several hard hits before he managed to bring them down with skill. According to his judgment, the fighting ability of these 2 security guards, even among the professional action experts of S.H.I.E.L.D., can be regarded as good hands, and they are the elite among the mercenaries and bodyguards outside. Sliding to the next building and landing on the balcony, he quickly took out the downhill device from his backpack and pressed it. In less than 10 seconds, he had landed downstairs, turned around and ran towards the fence of the community. Outside the fence was a street, and a car he was about to retreat was parked on the side of the street. However, when he ran under the fence, he found a man as strong as a bear, wearing a security uniform, already standing there. Fortunately, just one. Grant glanced around and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If there were 4 or 5 more like just now, he might not be able to escape today. There is no nonsense. From the very beginning it is a full-scale onslaught. Every move is aimed at the vital points, trying to bring down the strong man in front of him as quickly as possible. However, what shocked him was that the opponent's skill was far beyond his imagination, and every attack he made was easily resolved by the opponent. The skill is good, no wonder he was able to bring down 2 of my subordinates. Lee San shielded Grant's attack with his hands, stepped forward, swung his arm, and hit Grant's chest like a thunderbolt. The old bear hit the tree. Lee San's kung fu was passed down by Li Chuan himself, and what he learned was the bear shape in the 12 shapes of Xingyi. The spirit of the mountain spirit, the bear guards the whole, and the 2 palms protect the body, the eagle and the bear fight. The bear form is the most powerful form among the 12 forms. In terms of damage alone, once it is hit, it will do more damage than the dragon form and tiger form. Grant, a top fighter, was hit by Lee San, and his whole body spurted out a mouthful of blood and flew out. He stood on the ground several times before barely standing up again. Too strong, he has performed so many tasks and met so many masters, this is the first time he has encountered such a powerful one. It's a pity that I am an agent, and my strength is not only in fighting. Knowing that the man in front of him would definitely not be able to fight with bare hands, Grant reached out and took out the pistol from his waist and pointed it at Lee San. The use of firearms in the urban community may have a certain impact on him in the future, but it is obviously not the time to worry about this. I advise you to put down that thing in your hand, or don't blame me if you get shot in the head. Seeing Grant pull out his pistol, Lee San didn't panic at all, but showed a sarcasm instead. Grant's face froze when he heard this, and he slowly put down the pistol. Because he had already noticed that there were 2 infrared sights aimed at him, one aimed at his head and the other at his heart. It turned out that the snipers in the community had adjusted their positions and included the part where Lee San and Grant were fighting, within range. At this time, 7 or 8 strong men in security uniforms rushed over and surrounded Grant. Take away. Lee San let out a cold snort, and several strong men stepped forward and unloaded all Grant's equipment, and pressed him to the pre-renovated interrogation room in the community. Ding dong. Hearing the beep from the mobile phone on the bedside table, Li Chuan slowly opened his eyes, reached out and took the mobile phone over. It was only the first day I came here, and Hydra's agents are really impatient. Seeing the report sent by Lee San, Li Chuan carefully removed Wanda's white arms and thighs that were hanging on him. He got up lightly, left his room, and was led by 2 security guards who had been waiting at the door for a long time, to the interrogation room of the community. Boss, you have a very hard mouth. You didn't say anything. You said you wanted to talk to yourself. Seeing Li Chuan enter the house, Lee San stepped forward to report respectfully. Li Chuan waved his hand to show that he was fine. He sat in a chair next to him in his pajamas, yawned, looked at Grant with a bruised nose and swollen face, and said with a smile. I'm Li Chuan, tell me, who are you, and what do you want to do when you sneak into the community? Grant looked up at Li Chuan. Although his body was covered with injuries, his tone was very calm. My name is Grant Ward, and I'm an agent of the Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Agency. I sneaked into the complex today because I have to perform a secret mission. Your behavior has hindered my mission, please release me immediately. Quote. What mission? Kill me. Or kidnap me? Li Chuan frowned. Grant shook his head. I can't say the specific task, but it has nothing to do with you. This is a misunderstanding. Li Chuan reached out to take a pistol from Lee San, and pointed at Grant's head. You can choose not to say it, but your head will explode immediately. Don't worry, this room is very soundproof, and you can't hear the gunshots outside. Well, I said, although this is already against the regulations, my target is a man named Page on the 6th floor of Building 8. His real identity may be a terrorist. I need to sneak into his house to collect some information. Grant's expression was serious, and he didn't look like he was lying at all. In fact, he was indeed carrying out this mission, which was a SHIELD mission dispatched by John Garrett in advance. If he really went to investigate, there would be no problem. Li Chuan turned to look at Lee San, who replied, the information we investigated shows that Page is just an unemployed punk. That's just his superficial identity. Grant replied lightly. Page is indeed a jobless gangster, and even has several criminal records, but since yesterday he has been a terrorist, and a terrorist who has evaporated. Li Chuan nodded. He admired these Hydra agents for their meticulous work. No wonder they were able to turn SHIELD into an empty shell. The Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Agency, a large international organization, was established by Captain America's girlfriend Peggy Carter and Tony Stark's father Howard Stark. Oh, you may not know, Tony and I are really good friends. Former director Alexander Pierce, current director Nick Fury, do you think I'm right? Quote. How do you know this? Hearing Lee Chuan's words, Grant's pupils shrank. According to his information, Lee Chuan is just a wealthy businessman in Sokovia, and at most his methods are not clean. Today's abnormally powerful bodyguard team has already surprised him, but he didn't expect that the other party actually knew so much about S.H.I.E.L.D. and Tony Stark, which is not as simple as it is shown in the information. I know who you are, and I know who the person behind you is. You didn't come here today to find any terrorists, but it doesn't matter, this time I don't care. But when you go back, tell the person behind you not to trouble me anymore, otherwise I won't be as polite as I am today, and he will die in an ugly way. Quote. Lee Chuan's eyes instantly turned icy cold, and Grant felt as if he could hardly breathe due to the overwhelming momentum. Okay, don't treat our guest like this, bandage his wound and let him go, and get him something to eat on the way back, he should be hungry so late. I will go back to catch up on sleep first, and I will go to visit my new company tomorrow. Quote. After the warning, Lee Chuan got up and yawned again, then left the interrogation room calmly. But Grant's mind was in chaos, he was already confused by Lee Chuan's words just now. In the end, I could only pretend to be ignorant and replied. I do not know what you're talking about. Boss, let him go like this. On the way back to Building No. 8, Lee San had some doubts on his face. According to his thinking, he should kill the agent directly and use him to make an example of others. Lee Chuan smiled. Let it go. Hydra has a lot of agents. After killing one, I don't know how many more there will be. Just let him take a message back to Garrett to disturb Garrett's thinking. In what he said just now, there was no real mention of Hydra, nor did he pierce the window paper, but there were some vague hints. The purpose is to make Garrett suspicious and unclear about his details, so that he will not dare to act rashly again in a short time. As for the future, when his strength rises, if Garrett doesn't look for him, he will go to Garrett to completely remove this hidden danger. Then you lied to him when you said you knew Tony Stark just now. Lee San scratched his head. Lee Chuan laughed and said, that's not quite. It's true that we don't know each other now, but it will be different after a while. How is Obadiah Stane's investigation? The intelligence team has been ordered to investigate, and it is estimated that it will take a few days. Seeing that he had reached the door of the room, Lee San retreated after finishing his report. It seems that in the future, we still need to find a way to get the Soul Stone and use it to strengthen Wanda and Pietro's abilities. Lying back on the bed softly again, Lee Chuan made a secret decision in his heart. Originally, he had been debating whether to use the Mind Stone to enhance the abilities of Wanda and Pietro, because he felt that Wanda preferred to live like an ordinary person. But now it seems that in the dangerous world of Marvel, it is still very important to have a certain ability to protect yourself. Although he has been improving his protection for Wanda, everything is in case, and when something happens, it will be too late to regret. And if Wanda and Pietro have improved their abilities through the Mind Stone, then at least miscellaneous fish like Hydra can no longer threaten them. He doesn't need Wanda and Pietro to help him fight, as long as they have a certain ability to protect themselves when they encounter danger. Honey. As if sensing that Lee Chuan had returned to the bed, Wanda murmured something, and hugged him again like an octopus. After being messed up by this Hydra agent, I didn't even fall asleep. After all, he is a martial arts practitioner, with good physical strength, strong stamina, and resilience that cannot be compared with ordinary people. Seeing Wanda hugging tightly, Lee Chuan simply pulled the quilt, turning passive into active. After a while, Wanda's hand, which was exposed from the quilt, suddenly grabbed the sheet tightly. At the same time, Grant, who was staggering, left the interrogation room with a bag of bread and milk, and returned to his Chevrolet in the parking lot. Without hesitation, he kicked the accelerator and drove away quickly. This infiltration operation was the most failed operation since he became an agent, especially when the other party was still leaving to give him milk and bread. It was a great shame. I didn't expect that even you failed. It seems that Lee Chuan has hidden a lot of things secretly. Inside the Hydra base, Garrett looked at Grant, who who was bruised and badly injured, with a serious look on his face. Grant is by far the most satisfying and powerful agent he has cultivated. He said he still knows Tony Stark. Will he have a certain relationship with Nick Fury? Grant analyzed it. However, according to the information, the two of them have never met before. Regardless of whether it's true or not, even if he knew him, he shouldn't have anything to do with Nick Fury. As far as I know, Nick Fury hasn't contacted Tony Stark yet. Forget it, don't touch him until you find out his real details. Quote. After thinking for a moment, Garrett frowned and made a decision. Through the analysis of Lee Chuan's words, he is now not sure whether the other party really knows his identity, or just cheating them, and what other cards Lee Chuan is hiding. The Dolly pill is indeed helpful to his Death Warrior plan, but it is not that important, so it can be put aside for a while. And now he is also trying to find a way to use the intelligence and relationships of S.H.I.E.L.D. to get the incomplete super soldier serum from General Ross, which is the most important thing. The next day, when the first ray of sunlight reflected on Lee Chuan's face through the window, he slowly opened his eyes. As a martial artist, he has no habit of sleeping late. He got up and closed the curtains to prevent the sunlight from waking up Wanda, who was still sleeping, and Lee Chuan quietly left the bedroom. Yesterday, I was flying again, riding in a car, and tidying up my new home. Lee Chuan tossed me into sleeping until midnight for a long time. Wanda is not as healthy as Lee Chuan, so Lee Chuan didn't plan to wake her up in the morning. After washing up, he made 2 breakfasts in the kitchen of his new home, and after eating his own, he put Wanda's sticky note in the warmer. In terms of cooking skills, Lee Chuan's cooking skills are actually much better than Wanda's. Moreover, not only can he cook Western food, but he can also cook a lot of authentic Chinese food. It's just that he is very rich after time travel, so he doesn't need to cook by himself. But it's different now. Since they are all married and have a home, it is natural to have a home, and they can't spend money on everything. After breakfast, he came to the open-air parking lot of the community. Xiao Lu was already waiting for him in the car. Boss, today's process is like this. I will meet with all the employees of the new company at 9:30 to give a speech, hold a press conference at 10:30, and have one at 2 p.m. The car started. Xiao Lu told Lee Chuan about today's itinerary while driving. As the chairman of the Lee Group, he spends most of his time practicing and improving his strength, and rarely manages the company's affairs. The company's scientific research is handed over to Dr. Smith, and Jack is in charge of publicity, production, and sales. Xiao Wu will handle the secret work, and Uncle Lee will take care of everything. However, in special circumstances, he still has to show his face. For example, some charity activities, some press conferences that require the presence of the chairman, some important awards, and so on. Like now that the new company is established in New York, plus the release of 2 new products, he may have to devote his energy to this for a week or 2. As for the side mission to rescue Dr. Ethan, this is not urgent. One is that if he remembered correctly, it took Tony more than 2 months from being kidnapped to escaping by himself, but now it is only a few days, and there is still time. The second is that this is not Sokovia after all. The intelligence team in New York has just been established, and it will take some time to investigate the information about Obadiah Stannis. So the current preliminary plan is to let the new company establish a foothold in New York first, then complete the side missions to obtain the Palm Fairy technique, and finally go to the small world to practice and continue to improve its strength. The philosophy of our Lee Group is to make human life better, so the medicines we develop have always been in this direction. At the Lee Group's new product launch event, Lee Chuan introduced and promoted the product with a smile on his face while holding a microphone according to the script that Jack had drawn up in advance. Due to the outstanding effect of the new product and the low price, after Lee Chuan finished introducing it, the journalists interviewing below burst into flames instantly, and began to scramble to inquire about the relevant details. Lee Chuan also answered one by one very calmly. Boss, the effect is very good. This press conference is over. There should be a lot of introductions about our company and products tomorrow. Once we become famous, we can be regarded as a temporary foothold in New York. At the end of the new product launch event, a brown-haired man in his 30s reported to Li Xuanwei with some excitement. This brown-haired man is none other than Jack, who is actually in charge of the entire company's operations. Li Chuan patted Jack on the shoulder and said with a smile. Thanks to you, you have worked hard during this time. It's nothing. If you hadn't rescued me back then, I'd probably be rotting in a stinky ditch now, and my family wouldn't be living as well as they are now. Jack heard the words and replied solemnly. After graduating that year, he returned to his home country, Sokovia, to start a business, relying on the knowledge he had learned and his business talent to start his own business. Later, as his business got better and better, he also offended many people. Those people couldn't beat him in terms of business methods, so they used outside tactics to force him into bankruptcy, and made his younger brother who was still in school owe a lot of debts from gambling. Just when his family was about to be forced to death because of debt problems, Li Chuan appeared. Not only solved all his problems, but also killed all those opponents who had framed him. So now he is working so hard to run the group's business in order to repay Li Chuan for saving his life and his family. Of course, watching the group he runs grows step by step also makes him very satisfied. You should also pay more attention to your body. If you have nothing to do, take more of the essence version of Dolly Wan. Although you don't want to practice martial arts, eating more will definitely improve your physical fitness a lot. Li Chuan nodded, instructed Jack and left. In fact, he did save Jack at that time because he needed a management talent, but he didn't expect that Jack's ability in business was more powerful than he imagined. Jack's operation and management also played a very important role in Li's group being able to become a top enterprise in Sokovia within 3 years. The fragrance of wine is also afraid of deep alleys. If the product is good, it will not operate and manage, and often ends up making a wedding dress for others. There is a new task, please open the panel and view it in the taskbar. As soon as he got in the car, Li Chuan suddenly heard a mission prompt, so he opened the panel to check. Since coming to New York yesterday, besides the side mission of saving Dr. Ethan, several side missions have popped up, and the frequency is much more frequent than when they were in Sokovia. For example, stopping a thief from stealing, rescuing a small animal, etc. are extremely simple tasks, and the rewards are basically useless to him, so he doesn't bother. After the time has passed, these side quests will disappear. New main mission. When Li Chuan opened the panel to view the mission, his eyes suddenly lit up, because this time it was no longer an insignificant side mission, but a main mission that could open up a new world. So he couldn't wait to click on the newly added main task, and then carefully checked it. Main task. Grow Li's enterprise. Junior. Let the Li group become a first-class business in New York. Intermediate level. Make Li's group a top company comparable to the Stark group at its peak. Advanced. Let the Li group become the strongest enterprise far beyond the Stark group at its peak. Mission rewards. A new small world, with different initial identities and talents for different degrees of completion. Quote. I knew that there wasn't a single one of the main quests to complete. Seeing the new main task, Li Chuan couldn't help but rubbed his forehead. As a master of martial arts, he is best at fighting and killing people, such as the last time he sneaked into the Hydra base to sabotage. This kind of emotional and commercial tasks happened to be his weakness, but the main task was to lean on this side. The first main task after time travel is for him to fall in love with Wanda and get married. It took him 3 years and he finally completed this task after paying his true feelings. Now that he finally got the second main mission, which was to let him run the company, it would be easier than letting him do the Chidori alone. To become a first-class company in New York, he felt that with Jack's management ability, it should take a few years to achieve it. But it is too difficult to become a company comparable to the Stark Group. Don't look at his high profit from selling medicine, but can those who sell medicine make as much money as those who sell arms and energy? Of course, it's not easy to say. Black-hearted drug dealers are indeed quite profitable, and they can make a lot of money if they do well. The key is that Stark has been established for too long and has a huge industry in all aspects. He just started, and the size difference is too big. Not to mention catching up with him in 10 or 8 years, it would be too slow to catch up with him in 2 or 3 years. Stark Group was founded in the 19th century, and its business scope involves aerospace, military, medical, security and other high-tech industries, all of which are the most profitable industries. At its peak, Tony's worth is estimated to be $200 to $300 billion US. And to achieve the highest degree of completion is to go far beyond, so what kind of level is required? No, you can't think in the usual way. Shaking his head, Li Chuan put away some thoughts in his mind about how to run Li's business in the future and let it grow, but calmed down first. Running a business is not what he is good at. If he really devotes all his time to it, even if Thanos lands, he probably won't be able to reach the advanced level of completion. Perhaps, in order to achieve advanced completion, I need to find another way. Gradually, Li Chuan had some new ideas in his mind. The company's operation is still jack. What he should do is to use his own strengths to indirectly make the company grow through other methods. In fact, after calming down, he felt that he didn't need to be so anxious to complete the second main task, because he hadn't developed much value in the first world. What he needs most now is still to improve his strength first. When he is stronger, he can get more resources that can be used, which can speed up the completion of the main task. This second main task, on the surface, looks like a management task, but in fact it is not a test of management ability. The strength of the Stark Group is not due to the superb management capabilities of Howard and Tony, but more importantly, the invention and creativity of the father and son. He, Li Chuan, does not have the ability to invent and create, but he has an extra small world, has stronger strength, and knows secrets that many people do not know. As long as the operation is good, the new main task may not be as difficult to complete as he imagined. 2 weeks later, in a car in the open-air parking lot of the community. Boss, this is all the information collected by the intelligence team about Obadiah Stanislav. Xiaolu handed the stack of materials that he had sorted out to Li Chuan, who was sitting in the back. Li Chuan took the information and browsed it roughly. It included Obadiah Stanis' birth, age, general life experience, address, and daily action route, etc., which were recorded in great detail. Very well, it seems that we can act tonight. At present, the situation of the new company has basically stabilized, and Jack will continue to be responsible for the subsequent development, and he can return to a leisurely state. Taking advantage of this free time to complete this side mission earlier, he can also return to the small world to practice earlier. After writing down all the information about Obadiah Stanislav, Li Chuan got off the car and walked to building number 8 where he was. When he met other residents in some communities on the road, he would say hello very kindly. Although he also appeared in some news and newspapers because of the product launch of the new company. But in fact, most ordinary people still can't recognize him. Now the gap between him and Tony Stark is like that of a fairly good boss of a pharmaceutical company and the well-known President Ma in his previous life. Mr. Ma is walking on the road, and most people can recognize him at a glance. His popularity and recognition are no less than the most popular celebrities in China, or even worse. However, if it is a good pharmaceutical company owner, although his products are very famous, unless he is in a related industry or is of special concern, most people don't know him at all. It's like most people don't know the most common and popular medicines such as 666 Hanlingaling, Xfinbud, Xhubao, etc., who is their chairman, what they look like, and how old they are. So when Li Chuan is walking on the street now, it is almost impossible for someone to suddenly point to him and say, "Oops, isn't this the boss of some group or something like that?" Residents in the community only know that there is a newly married couple living in their community. The man is handsome and the woman is beautiful, and both of them are very friendly people. "Honey, try this, a chocolate chip cookie I learned from Mrs. Martha next door." Seeing Li Chuan come back, Wanda immediately took out the freshly made chocolate chip cookies from the oven, and brought them to Li Chuan like a treasure. Li Chuan picked up one and chewed it twice in his mouth, his eyes lit up immediately. "It's delicious, much better than the boxed ones I bought." This time he didn't comfort Wanda. The taste was indeed good. He found that although Wanda's cooking talent was mediocre, she was very good at making desserts. In the first few days when I first learned how to make it, it was quite ordinary, but after getting close to my neighbor Mrs. Martha recently, I seem to have learned a lot of useful skills, and the taste of the desserts I made is getting better and better. Of course, I went to the supermarket to buy the best butter and chocolate, and then made it according to the secret recipe given to me by Mrs. Martha. After trying several times, I achieved the most satisfactory effect. When Wanda heard Li Chuan's praise, she proudly raised her chin. In fact, she failed several times before making the most perfect chocolate chip cookie, either completely failed, or not at the level that Mrs. Martha made. Of course, she didn't waste those failed products, either as gifts to her brother Pietro who lived next door, or to other residents in the community. This is also the reason why in just 2 weeks, many residents of the community got to know Wanda and Li Chuan and think they are very nice people. Who wouldn't like a neighbor who likes to give you free desserts at the stall? Wanda, don't you want to eat? Li Chuan stuffed the chocolate cookies into his mouth one by one, but found that Wanda just leaned on his chin and looked at him, but he didn't eat any. I'm on a diet and I can't eat desserts recently. Wanda smiled and shook her head. Li Chuan looked at the chocolate chip cookie in his hand, and sighed inwardly. Fortunately, with his own body, this amount of energy is nothing at all. He finally understood why many men tend to gain weight after they get married. However, it is also very good. Life is not like this. There is a harbor where you can rest your feet at any time, and you can fight better outside. By the way, dear, I have something I want to discuss with you. After Li Chuan finished eating the biscuits, Wanda's tone suddenly became a little apprehensive. What's the matter, you say? Seeing this, Li Chuan smiled and grabbed Wanda's hands. Wanda hesitated for a moment, and finally said, Today, when Mrs. Martha was teaching me how to make desserts, she invited me to join their relief station, which is to use the free time to help some orphans and homeless people together. The main reason is that when Mrs. Martha talked about her work experience, it touched her heart and reminded her of the hard life with her brother in the orphanage after her parents died. If you feel good, agree to come down. Li Chuan nodded. But I know you don't seem to like me working outside. A trace of worry appeared on Wanda's face. Li Chuan touched Wanda's head. I just don't think the family is short of money. It's too hard for you to go to work. Don't look fierce to the enemy, but in essence he is not the kind of person who has a strong desire to control, especially for real relatives and friends. He doesn't really want Wanda to go to work, but only considers the hard work and safety issues of work. However, the work of the rescue station is not bad, because it is only some voluntary help, and there is no specific working time. I go there when I am free, and I don't go when I am not free. It is also a good thing for Wanda to meet some kind friends. Hearing that Li Chuan agreed to work at the aid station, Wanda happily kissed Li Chuan and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. After dinner, Li Chuan left the house under the pretext that the company had something urgent to deal with. At 11 o'clock in the evening, on the outskirts of a single ultra-luxury villa in Manhattan, Li Chuan looked at the 10-meter-high wall in front of him and said with a smile, This Obadiah Stanley is really cautious enough. The normal outer wall is 3 or 4 meters high. The high wall of the Obadiah's villa was obviously specially heightened in the later stage. It is really very difficult for ordinary people to go in. However, this was not a problem for Li Chuan at all. I saw him attaching chakra to the soles of his feet, and easily stepped on the high wall and walked up. Although there is no way to practice ninjutsu during this time, he has never practiced less about the fine control of chakra. In order to be able to learn the A-level difficult palm fairy technique more easily, whenever he is free these 2 weeks, he will use the ornamental fish in the office fish tank to practice chakra control experiments. After climbing over the 10-meter high wall, Li Chuan made seals with his hands, transformed into Obadiah Stanislav, and walked towards the villa. He didn't dodge when he met those patrolling bodyguards on the road. Those bodyguards thought that their boss came down for a walk because he couldn't sleep at night, so they didn't pay much attention. Walking all the way to the door of the villa, he easily recognized the smart lock with Obadiah's face, opened the door and walked in. In the bedroom on the 2nd floor, looking at Obadiah Stanis who was already sound asleep, Li Chuan took out the anesthetic spray and hit his old face a few times, putting him into a coma completely. Wrapped in a sheet and carried it downstairs and threw it behind the door, Li Chuan waved to a bodyguard patrolling ahead. Go to the garage and drive a car. The bodyguard was stunned for a moment, but he nodded and trotted to the garage. A moment later, a valuable off-road vehicle stopped in front of Li Chuan. After letting the bodyguard continue patrolling, he threw Obadiah, who was wrapped in a sheet, into the back seat, and drove the off-road vehicle to the gate of the villa openly. Seeing that the person driving was Obadiah, the guard immediately activated the switch and opened the gate. I have something to go out for a few days recently. If someone comes to me, let him wait until I come back. After pressing down the car window and giving instructions to the guard, Li Chuan stepped on the gas pedal and rushed out. Regarding the exact location of the group of terrorists who kidnapped Tony Stark, only Obadiah knows. No, maybe even he doesn't know, but he at least knows the contact information of the leader. As long as he can get in touch with that leader, then he has a way to find out their location. Before, he thought about sneaking into Obadiah's villa and Stark Tower while Obadiah was away, looking for clues about Obadiah's contact with terrorists. But after thinking about it for a while, forget it. It's not a difficult problem to sneak in. The problem is that he is not a computer expert. He might not even be able to pass the most basic computer power on password to sneak in. So he chose a more direct method, that is, directly tied Obadiah, and then tortured him for the information he needed. Obadiah is not an agent of Hydra. Even if he committed suicide by taking poison, he would not waste any information. I believe that Lee San and the others can let him tell all the secrets without his help. As for whether the kidnapping of a well-known figure like Obadiah will cause any uproar, that is of course affirmative. Although it will be worse than Tony Stark, it will definitely be a sensation. However, this is not a problem. Because both the bodyguards and the monitoring at the entrance of the villa can prove that Obadiah drove out of the villa by himself, and specifically said that he would not return until a few days later. In a few days, after he completed the side mission, he would naturally release Obadiah. At that time, presumably Obadiah will face the anger of Tony Stark and the trial of the law. As for his kidnapping, it is estimated that no one will care. The next day, Li Chuangong and Wanda came back from a run in the park near the community when a voice suddenly stopped him. "It's Mr. Li Chuan, please wait a moment, I want to tell you about the new regulations on parking spaces in the parking lot." Li Chuan turned his head to see Li San, and said to Wanda next to him, "Wanda, go back and make breakfast first, and I'll take care of it." Wanda nodded without doubting anything. She wiped the sweat off her brow and continued to trot towards Building No. 8. After Wanda disappeared, Lee San began to report. Obadiah explained everything, the information and contact information about the terrorist organization, as well as the content of the transaction between them. "Did you tell him why we asked him for this?" Li Chuan wiped the sweat from his hands. Lee San replied, "We only said that we had hatred with that terrorist organization, and we wanted to find them, but we didn't specifically mention the issues related to Tony Stark." "Okay, I see. I'll go over after breakfast in a while." In fact, whether Obadiah knew their purpose was not very important, even if he guessed it, so what? If the plan goes well, by the time they let him go, everything will be a foregone conclusion. After returning home and having breakfast with Wanda, Li Chuan did not go to the new company, but came to the secret interrogation room in the community. Glancing at Obadiah, who was covered in wounds and completely blindfolded, Li Chuan nodded, and asked his computer-savvy subordinates to contact him in the name of Obadiah according to the contact information Obadiah explained. The head of that terrorist group, Raza Hamidmi. After a while, the subordinates looked at the computer and reported. He said that he didn't say that the person who kidnapped him was the famous Tony Stark. If they want to kill him, they have to pay more. You reply to him, just say that I want to see him. If the negotiation is good, I am willing to pay 5 times the original price, and I am willing to provide him with the most advanced missiles of the Stark Group in the future. Li Chuan thought for a while and ordered, "Yes, boss." After typing for a while, the subordinate replied. He agreed. "Tomorrow morning, outside Baghlan Province, Afghanistan." "Very well, it seems that I have to talk to Wanda about the business trip." Li Chuan showed a smile on his face, and then told Li San behind. "Continue to anesthetize him, don't let him wake up, and deal with it after I come back." As long as Raza Hamidmi agrees to meet, that's basically 80% of the way. There are new side quests, but please go to the panel to check. At this moment, Li Chuan's daily task reminder sounded in his ears. Open the panel and click on the branch task bar, a newly refreshed task at the top appears. Subtask: kill Raza Hamidmi, the small leader of the 10 Rings gang, and destroy his base in the Afghan desert. Reward: 2 months of small world time. Quote, "It's really rare, and the task of rewarding small world time has been refreshed again." Seeing that the task reward was actually 2 months of small world time, Li Chuan felt even better. There have been a lot of side missions refreshed recently, but regarding the small world time mission, this is the first time it has appeared after the mission of settling in New York. But in this way, the plan to secretly take away Tony Stark and Dr. Ethan will be changed. Originally, he planned to bring down Raza Hamidmi, use the transformation technique to change into his appearance, and take away Tony Stark and Dr. Ethan directly, which is the safest way. But now for the task reward, he will have to kill at that time. After thinking about it, he felt that this was good, at least it would cut the weeds and get rid of the roots, and he wouldn't have to worry about the follow-up troubles, it was just a little more trouble. The next morning, a wasteland in the outskirts of Baghlan province, Afghanistan. Boss, we're only 200 meters away. Xiaolu looked at the tent looming in front of him and a dozen strong men with guns, and reported to Li Xuanwei behind him. Li Chuan made seals with both hands, and used the transformation technique to transform into the appearance of Obadiah Stannis. Tell the brothers to put on their masks and don't show their faces. After I leave in a while, you all go back to the hotel and wait for me. Although his goal this time is to annihilate Raza Hamidmi and everyone in his base, it is uncertain whether some of the people here will not return to the base. In case one or two were missed, they had seen the appearance of Xiaolu and the others, and they might be troublesome in the future. Yes, boss. Xiaolu was taken aback when he saw Li Chuan's appearance through the mirror, then nodded, and put on the mask he had prepared long ago. He knew that the boss had the magical ability to transform into other people, but it was the first time he saw it with his own eyes. Approaching the tent, Li Chuan and the two cars behind him were forced to stop by the strong men with guns in front, and he took Xiaolu out of the car. It's me, Obadiah Stane, where's your boss? Mr. Obadiah, Boss Raza is already waiting for you in the tent, come with me, your bodyguards stay outside. A strong bearded man stepped forward to look at Li Chuan, and then spoke. Li Chuan winked at Xiaolu, and Xiaolu immediately returned to the car with a few of his men. In the tent, seeing Li Chuan being brought in, the bald-headed Raza immediately stepped forward to give Li Chuan a hug. Mr. Obadiah, it's really not that I don't want to complete the agreement. In our business, each head has its own value. The price you gave really doesn't match Tony Stark's head. In fact, Obadiah has already given a lot of money, but he understands that Obadiah killed Tony Stark in order to control the entire group. At this time, as long as he insists on raising the price, Obadiah will definitely be able to give in the end. Even if it really turns yellow in the end, if you save the life of that genius inventor to serve yourself, you can still get a lot of advanced weapons and you won't suffer. Mr. Raza, I have thought about it for the past few days, and what you said is very reasonable. Adding money is not a problem, I can even provide you with a large number of the most advanced weapons, but you have to promise me one condition. Quote. Li Chuan let go of Leza and laughed loudly. What conditions? Raza narrowed his eyes. Li Chuan sat on the chair next to him. It's very simple. You need to take me to meet Tony. I have something to ask him about the company. When I get the answer I want, then the conditions promised to you will naturally be fulfilled. It's that simple. Raza looked at Li Chuan and instinctively told him that things must not be that simple. It's that simple. Li Chuan spread his hands. After thinking for a while, Raza finally couldn't resist the temptation and nodded. Yes, but you can't bring bodyguards, you can only be alone, and you must be blindfolded throughout the process, otherwise the transaction will be void. All tricks are useless in the face of absolute strength. As long as Obadiah is willing to go to their base alone, then he will not be able to make any waves. Li Chuan pretended to hesitate, then looked at his watch. No problem, but it's best to send me back before 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I need to rush back to New York for a meeting in the evening. If it's really just a talk, I think there should be no problem. Raza replied with a slightly warning tone. 5 minutes later, Li Chuan was blindfolded and brought into a jeep. After about an hour and a half of driving, the black cloth from his eyes was removed. Mr. Obadiah, welcome to my base, Raza said to Li Chuan in a slightly smug tone. After Li Chuan was taken off the black cloth, he took a rough look around. The place where he is now seems to be a small valley. The valley is full of various weapons, and even the exposed missiles can be seen, and the Stark Industries logo is printed on the missiles. There were no idlers in the base, all of them were members of the 10 Commandments gang armed with guns. After a rough look, it was estimated that there were 30 or 40 people. Mr. Raza, take me to see Tony. After just a glance, Li Chuan withdrew his gaze. Raza didn't say much. He waved to Li Chuan, and led him to a cave in the middle of the valley. This cave is obviously a resting place for everyone in the base. The space inside is large, deep, winding and rugged, and there are guards with guns every 10 meters. Walking along the cave to the end, a big iron gate appeared in front of Li Chuan. Raza spoke a few words with the two guards outside the iron gate in a local dialect that Li Chuan could not understand, and the two guards immediately took out the keys and opened the iron gate. Tony and Ethan, who were welding inside, immediately stopped their work when they heard the sound of the iron door. Obadiah. The iron door opened, and when he saw Obadiah walking in with the terrorist leader who kidnapped him, Tony was stunned for a moment. As a friend of his father, Obadiah is the company's largest shareholder other than him, and has always taken good care of him. Many troublesome affairs of the company are handled by Obadiah. He really couldn't understand why Obadiah was here. Was he also kidnapped like himself? At this time, Tony Stark, although he already had some guesses in his heart, still forcibly found a plausible excuse for the other party. If it was really a kidnapping, the attitude of the terrorist leader towards Obadiah is too good. "Oh, isn't this my eldest nephew Tony? It's great to see that you're fine. I thought you had been killed by someone I hired. I was sad for a long time." Li Chuan looked at the completed generation of arc reactor on Tony's chest, with a big smile on his face, then turned his head and said to Raza, who is narrating you. "It's not convenient for you to listen to the following words. Please Mr. Laza and your subordinates go out for a while." "It's okay, you can talk casually. If you need anything, you can call my subordinates, they are at the door." Raza nodded, and left with his men, closing the door behind him. "Obadiah, what did you mean by that?" Seeing those terrorists leave, Tony angrily stepped forward and questioned Li Chuan. And Li Chuan glanced at the surveillance camera in the corner, picked up a chair and walked towards the corner. "It seems that you are not so stupid, just as you think. I want to get the entire Stark group, so I hired these people to blow you up. It's just that I didn't expect that you survived by chance, and they raised the price after discovering your identity, so I had to make another trip." Quote. "Obadiah, who are you?" Hearing Li Chuan's reply, the angry Tony was about to pick up the electric welder on the table and give him a hard blow, when he suddenly saw Obadiah pick up a chair and smash it at the monitor in the corner, smashing the monitor directly. However, this is not the most surprising thing. The most surprising thing is that Obadiah's appearance changed suddenly, and he became a completely different person. Similarly, Dr. Ethan, who had been confused about the situation next to Tony, also widened his eyes because of this miraculous scene. "It's the first time we meet. My name is Li Chuan, you can also call me Chuan." After smashing the only surveillance camera in the room, Li Chuan turned around and looked at Tony and Ethan with a smile. "It's convenient, can we sit down and talk together?" Tony and Ethan looked at each other and nodded silently. At present, their situation is already terrible, and Li Chuan, a person with magical abilities, at least should not be with those terrorists. "Well, let me tell you about my situation first, so that you can understand." The three leaned against the corner where they would not be seen by the iron gate. In order to clear up their confusion, Li Chuan spoke first. 2 weeks ago, when my subordinates were investigating Mr. Obadiah, they discovered a very interesting thing. As for why Mr. Obadiah was investigated, it involved the relationship between my subordinates and Mr. Obadiah. A little grievance. Of course, this is not important. The important thing is that this interesting incident is actually related to the famous kidnapped Tony Stark, who is you. You must have guessed by now that the mastermind behind this kidnapping incident is Obadiah, who is also a shareholder of the Stark Group with you. So, I ordered my subordinates to invite Obadiah to my place, asked for some information in a friendly manner, and then used my superpower to change into his appearance and come here. Quote. "So you're here to save me?" After listening to Li Chuan's narration, Tony was not particularly excited and remained calm. The life and death struggle of these 2 weeks has transformed the original playboy Tony Stark, and he has grown a lot. Some of what the other party said may be true, but there is no such thing as a pie in the world, and it seems a bit unreasonable to come here alone at the risk, just to save him, a stranger who has always been masked. And just from the words of the other party and the superpower he just said, it can be judged that the other party is not an ordinary person. You can say that, or you don't need to say that. Whether to save or not, depends on your decision in the end. Lee Chuan raised his eyebrows looking at the calm Tony. His mission here is to rescue Dr. Ethan and destroy Raza in this base. As for Tony Stark, it is not within the scope of his mission. Of course, he still had to be rescued. After all, he, a butterfly that accidentally broke in, had already changed a lot of things. If Iron Man, the core figure of the Avengers, is gone, it is estimated that many things in the future will be even more difficult to grasp. The only direction he is familiar with will have a large deviation. However, it must not be a free rescue. There is no suitable reason for a free rescue, which is untenable and easily arouses suspicion. Instead, it is better to propose suitable conditions and earn some extra benefits from the mission. Mr. Lee Chuan, please tell me what conditions you have. Tony looked up. A genius with a high IQ can understand many things without saying anything. Lee Chuan raised his hand and gave Tony a thumbs up. I have opened a new company in New York, but I am new here, and many things are bumpy. I hope Mr. Tony can help in the future. There are also those machines in our production base. I think they all need to be improved, but because the company does not have talents in this field, it would be better if Mr. Tony is free to help with the modification. Quote, although he rarely intervenes in the company's affairs, he still knows the general situation. On the whole, it went smoothly under Jack's management, but the water in New York is really deep, and many aspects are very troublesome because of insufficient network. And when it comes to the relationship network, who else can compare to Stark, a huge group that has been entrenched in New York for many years, and even the government has nothing to do with him. That's it. Tony was taken aback when he heard that. He thought how high the request would be from the other party. After all, it was about his life. As long as it was not too much, he would agree. But I didn't expect it to be so simple. Then why don't you ask Obadiah to cooperate? I think this condition, he will definitely agree to you. I am a kind and conscientious legal businessman. The medicines I sell are all used to save people. I hate his behavior of selling weapons to terrorists for money. And that kind of person doesn't have any credibility at all. Maybe he will take revenge on me afterwards. It's not worth it. Quote. Lee Chuan spread his hands, then looked at Dr. Ethan next to him. This should be Dr. Ethan. I heard from the leader of the Ten Rings gang that you are very good at medicine. When they brought Mr. Stark back, they thought it was hopeless, but in the end they were rescued by you. Are you interested in working in my company? The salary and treatment will definitely satisfy you. Quote. Well, if I can really get out alive, and your company is like what you said, I will consider it. Dr. Ethan, who had been silent all this time, was suddenly queried by Lee Chuan and replied in a daze. And Tony touched the arc reactor on his chest. I always thought that the weapons I produced were for defending the country and protecting the people, but they are being used to kill innocent people. Speaking of which, I am no better than Obadiah. You are different, you just didn't know this before, now it's too late to change. Ethan reached out and patted Tony on the shoulder encouragingly. Although they have been together for less than a month, Ethan can clearly feel that Tony is not as rumored, his heart is kind. If Tony can get out alive, in his capacity, it will bring great help to the whole world. That's why when Ethan saw the makers of the weapons that killed his family, he didn't want to kill him with hatred, but guided him step by step. You're right, I can't die like this, I have to make up for the mistakes I made. Tony nodded firmly towards Ethan, then looked at Lee Chuan. Mr. Lee Chuan, I don't know what plan you have to take us out safely. You have a locator, or your people have already surrounded the valley outside. How can we cooperate with your plan? Well, I was searched when I came. I couldn't bring a locator, and I was blindfolded. I didn't know the exact location of this place. All my men went back to the hotel in the province, so I came here alone. Lee Chuan spread his hands and replied. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.